Chapter 803. Relaxing time was a luxury for both Seveni and Sue-E. The two of them walked around the streets for around an hour before returning to the royal palace on the same path. No one disturbed the two of them when they returned to the royal palace, and no one knew the details of this secret discussion. But half a month after Sue-E left Anvilmar City, the Lampari Kingdom suddenly proposed a ceasefire with the Sac Kingdom. Although the Sac Kingdom felt that the Lampari Kingdom proposing a ceasefire was a kind of humiliation to them, because they couldn't resist the Lampari Kingdom's attack at all, they could only accept it in the end. For many people in the Sac Kingdom, the Lampari Kingdom taking the initiative to propose a ceasefire was something worth celebrating. The high-level nobles were worried that the Sac Kingdom would be flattened by the Lampari Kingdom, and the low-level commoners were worried that the war would seriously affect their lives. Among these commoners, the ones whose lives were most seriously affected were the people of Tucklin Town that was the free trade zone of the previous agreement. Because Tucklin Town was the free trade zone between the two countries, this unknown town instantly became a gathering place for merchants from both countries, causing its fame to soar. At the same time, because the merchants from both countries were trading here, the town became more prosperous. Previously, most of the people in this small town lived in poverty, but with the opening of the free trade zone, their lives had undergone a drastic change. There were suddenly a lot of job opportunities in the small town. As long as anyone had hands and feet, they could find a job with a good income. They could even find an opportunity to start a small business. Therefore, it was not difficult to make a small fortune. But with the war between the two countries, the free trade zone was affected. There were no more merchants who came here, and the town became deathly silent overnight. All the businesses in the town stopped, and the people seemed to have lost their vitality. Everyone understood that with the Lampari Kingdom going to war with the Sac Kingdom again, this free trade zone would disappear. The beautiful lives they had before would become a dream that would never return. However, just as everyone was feeling hopeless, a piece of good news suddenly came. The Lampari Kingdom actually took the initiative to propose a ceasefire. After receiving this news, the people of Tucklin Town were overjoyed but also on tenterhooks every day, afraid that the upper echelons of the kingdom would not agree to the ceasefire. As long as the war continued, they could only continue their hopeless lives. Fortunately, a week after the Lampari Kingdom proposed a truce, the Sac Kingdom finally responded. They decided to accept the truce and began to negotiate a truce with the Lampari Kingdom. Even if there were many people in the Sac Kingdom who were worried that their kingdom would suffer a loss in the ceasefire negotiations, the people of Tucklin Town didn't think that this was related to them at all. The only thing they cared about was whether the free trade zone between the two countries, represented by Tucklin Town, would reopen. Just 3 days after the two countries officially started the ceasefire negotiations, another piece of good news came, relieving the worries of the people in Tucklin. The Lampari Kingdom side first proposed that they would reopen the free trade zone between the two countries. But at the same time, the Lampari Kingdom side also proposed that they would expand the free trade zone in Tucklin Town. They would expand the area around Tucklin Town, including the 3 cities on the border between the two countries, into a new free trade zone. If one looked at the map, they would find that these 3 cities and Tucklin Town form a line on the border between the two countries, covering almost all the areas on the border between the Sac Kingdom and the Lampari Kingdom. Of course, this wasn't related to Tucklin Town at all. The people of the town only knew that the free trade zone would reopen and they would regain their good days filled with vitality. 2 weeks after the two countries signed the new free trade zone agreement, the first caravan from the Lampari Kingdom that the people of Tucklin Town were looking forward to finally arrived in Tucklin Town. However, when they saw the flag flying in front of this large caravan, everyone was stunned. This flag that was completely blown by the wind had a half-wing pattern printed on it. As the flag fluttered in the wind, the half-wing kept flapping, like it would take off at any moment. They definitely wouldn't be wrong. This flag, it definitely represented the new flyer. In the past 2 years, all kinds of household magic machines had entered the Sac Kingdom, allowing everyone to see the convenience these new things brought. When buying these household magic machines, everyone received a message. It was that in the field of household magic machines, the best would always be the Sheen Fei brand household magic machines produced by the New Flyer. But even if there were countless examples that prove this, the Sheen Fei brand household magic machines were only brought to Tucklin Town by the merchants of the Lampari Kingdom. The New Flyer had never appeared before. This was the first time the New Flyer's flag had appeared in Tucklin Town. As for why the New Flyer hadn't appeared in Tucklin Town before, the people of the town had already asked around. They knew that it was because the New Flyer wasn't a company of the Lampari Kingdom, so they wouldn't represent the Lampari Kingdom in entering the free trade zone between the two countries. But why did the New Flyer come to the free trade zone this time? Moreover, the New Flyer's flag was flying in front of the caravan, which was the most conspicuous, looking like they were leading the pack. Why was this? Other than the New Flyer in the lead being a bit surprising, the caravan itself was also very surprising. Although the caravans from the Lampari Kingdom used many transport magic cars to transport goods, there were still some traditional transport horse carriages mixed in. The main reason was that the price of transport magic cars was quite high and some small companies couldn't afford them, so they could only use traditional transport horse carriages. But in this caravan, from beginning to end, there wasn't a single trace of a traditional transport horse carriage. Looking from front to back, there were countless large transport magic cars that formed a long caravan. As they passed through the dirt road that wasn't considered wide in Tucklin Town, they raised a cloud of dust. This caravan, just based on their appearance, it was much more imposing than any other caravan from the Lampari Kingdom. Was it because the New Flyer was leading the caravan this time? Everyone watched with wide eyes as the caravan quickly approached. When the New Flyer's flag in front was less than a kilometer away from Tucklin Town, there was a pure white magic sedan that was glowing in the sun that quickly drove out of the dust. It should have been driving in the dust for a long time, but this magic sedan was still as clean as new, without a single speck of dust on it. This magic sedan that looked very smooth and had a different kind of beauty came out of the dust at high speed, looking very shocking. Seeing this magic sedan, Tucklin Town's Mayor Puyol, who had been waiting outside the town, turned to look at the important people beside him. Go and welcome them. Don't be rude. A middle-aged man with a serious expression and a wide face who looked quite dignified said in a deep voice. Yes, Puyol quickly replied. With a wave of his hand, the band that had been prepared by the side began to play a welcoming song. There was also a group of children who had been prepared on both sides of the road, desperately waving the flowers in their hands. Then a group of people came forward. The magic sedan that Sue-Yi personally drove slowly stopped. After coming out of the driver's seat and seeing the children and band on both sides, he couldn't help smiling. This scene couldn't help reminding him of the scenes he had seen on television back on Earth. Chairman Sue, welcome, welcome. When the middle-aged man who had been dignified in front of Mayor Puyol saw Sue-Yi, he immediately revealed a smile that was like a flower. He came forward with large steps and took the initiative to reach out his hand to Sue-Yi. Sue-Yi shook his hand with a smile. Chief Alvin, to have you personally come to welcome me, I really am sorry. This middle-aged man was the Sac Kingdom's Royal Parliament's Business Department Chief, Paula Alvin. This time, the Lampari Kingdom and the Sac Kingdom had opened the free trade zone, so the New Flyer leading the Lampari Kingdom caravan to Tucklin Town had a very important meaning. The Sac Kingdom's high level placed importance on this, so naturally they sent their most important person. If it wasn't for the fact that this matter only involved business on the surface, the one representing the Sac Kingdom wouldn't just be the business department chief, Paula Alvin. Hearing Sue-Yi's words, Chief Alvin laughed. Chairman Sue is too polite. When they learned that you were personally coming, there were countless people in the kingdom who wanted to meet you. I'm only able to stand here because of my status. Otherwise, I'm afraid I wouldn't even know where I'd end up in the line. Sue-Yi revealed a faint smile, thinking that this Chief Alvin was quite humorous. But this person was the business department chief, so he often came in contact with merchants. Naturally, he had learned how to talk to people and talk to ghosts. He could be considered a real honored guest of the Sac Kingdom this time, so it was normal for him to praise him a bit. I'm not a beauty. There's no interest in meeting me. But speaking of meeting me, you should build a road first. That way it'll be more convenient, right? Alvin looked at the Lampari Kingdom caravan that had stopped behind Sue E, and seeing the dust filling the sky, he revealed an awkward smile. Chapter 804. With the appearance of the new flyer, the magic machine craze in the countries to the southwest of Signs had a large influence on the surrounding countries. But if one was to talk about the influence of magic machines, the biggest change that the appearance of the new flyer brought to these countries was the improvement of transportation. Roads. When this new road first appeared in Banda City, it didn't attract that much attention. But when the roads were built in the Lampari Kingdom and gradually connected all the cities in the Lampari Kingdom, people immediately discovered the great convenience brought by the roads. With the magic cars developed by the new flyer, there was a new road network in the Lampari Kingdom. Compared to the horse carriages that had to travel on dirt roads before, the magic cars that had to travel on flat roads were much faster and more comfortable. It made people forget about the old horse carriages. So after seeing the convenience brought by the roads, the countries around the Lampari Kingdom all followed suit and invited the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce to build roads in their countries. To this day, there were over 20,000 kilometers of roads in the Lampari Kingdom. Not only were there roads in every city, there were even roads in every small town. In second place, it wasn't the Kingdom of Ruhr that was bigger than the Lampari Kingdom, but rather the Principality of Constantine. The Kingdom of Ruhr's roads had barely surpassed 10,000 kilometers at the beginning of this year, but the Principality of Constantine's roads had already surpassed 15,000 kilometers in the middle of last year. If one looked at it from above, the roads in the Principality of Constantine were like a spider's web, densely covering all the roads that could be replaced. There were even roads that were built in places that didn't have roads before, ensuring that one could go from one place to another in the Principality of Constantine. All of this was, of course, because the new flyer's main base was in the Principality of Constantine. Other than this, in the surrounding countries, like the Drake Duchy, the Mirando Duchy, the Norton Duchy, and the other countries, they had already built several roads, at least replacing the main roads in their countries with roads. Even the Falk Kingdom that had been in contact with the Frestac Chamber of Commerce the year before last had already built 3 roads across the country. There were currently 11 roads that were estimated to be over 2,000 kilometers of road that were being built. According to the report that the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce had made through the Lampurie Weekly, it was estimated that they would finish building the roads in the surrounding countries in 5 years, connecting these countries with roads. Once this plan was complete, even if one set off from the Principality of Constantine in the southwest to the Falk Kingdom in the northeast, the distance of close to 2,500 kilometers, they would still be able to drive on the roads. If they used the new flyer's fastest magic sedan, it would only take a day and a half to get there. But a few years ago, this distance was something that almost everyone couldn't reach. It could be said that with the appearance of roads, it had greatly shortened the distance between countries. It made the countries in the southwest corner of the Signs much closer than before. However, all of this was unrelated to the Sac Kingdom. The reason was very simple. The Sac Kingdom and the Lampari Kingdom had always been enemies, and the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce was a company that belonged to the Lampari Kingdom. Adding in the relationship between the new flyer and the Sac Kingdom, it was impossible for the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce to build roads in the Sac Kingdom. So when the surrounding countries were investing in paving roads, working hard to create a new road network, the Sac Kingdom could only watch. No matter how much they wanted it, they couldn't do anything. But with the establishment of the free trade zone between the Lampari Kingdom and the Sac Kingdom, the relationship between the two countries had loosened and the Sac Kingdom had seen a trace of hope. But the Sac Kingdom had hinted to the Lampari Kingdom several times, even sending people to contact the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce in secret, but they had always been rejected. This made the Sac Kingdom completely give up. This time the Lampari Kingdom had suddenly declared war on the Sac Kingdom, which made the people in the Sac Kingdom who cared about the roads give up all hope. The relationship between the two sides was already this bad. How could the Lampari Kingdom allow the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce to build roads for the Sac Kingdom? However, no one would have thought that the Lampari Kingdom's attitude would change 180 degrees. After taking the initiative to propose a ceasefire to the Sac Kingdom, the Lampari Kingdom not only took the initiative to rebuild the free trade zone, they even loosened up in many other aspects. Building roads was one of them. This time the new flyer wasn't a company that belonged to the Lampari Kingdom in name, but they were leading the Lampari Kingdom's caravan here. In the caravan behind them, there was a representative from the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. After mentioning building roads to Chief Alvin, he waved his hand behind him, and Chairman Cruz, who had been watching the entire time, came over with a smile. Chief Alvin, this is Chairman Cruz of the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. Cruz, this is Chief Alvin of the Sac Kingdom's Department of Commerce. He introduced the two of them. Chairman Cruz reached out his hand with a smile, and when he was halfway there, Chief Alvin took it and said in an excited voice, Chairman Cruz, it really is a happy thing to see you. Our Sac Kingdom has been waiting for the arrival of you and the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. Chairman Cruz laughed. Chief Alvin, you're too polite. Actually, how can we not have wanted to come a long time ago? In our company's road network plan, the Sac Kingdom has always been missing, which has always made me feel uneasy. Chief Alvin gave a dry laugh and held Chairman Cruz's hand even tighter. Since it's like this, how about we fill this gap together this time? Of course. I came this time to fill it, Chairman Cruz said in a heroic voice. He revealed a smile and turned to look at the people behind Chief Alvin before asking in a loud voice, May I ask which one of you is Mayor Puyol? Mayor Puyol, who had been smiling on the side, came out with a flattered look. Chairman what orders do you have? He revealed a faint smile and waved his hand. It's not an order. But Mayor Puyol, since the people from the caravan are here, let's not waste any more time and begin. Mayor Puyol looked at Chief Alvin with a questioning gaze. Chief Alvin's face turned serious. What are you looking at me for? Just do what you need to do. Listen to Chairman Su's orders. After saying this, he turned to and revealed a friendly smile. Chairman please. He shook his head. Chief Alvin, you're mistaken. I'm not the main character this time. The main characters are them. Seeing point at the Lampari Kingdom caravan behind him, Chief Alvin was stunned. He patted his forehead and revealed a look of enlightenment. Right, look at my memory. Then, Chairman Cruz, let's go invite the representatives of the companies that came with you. Chairman Cruz looked at and seeing him give a nod, he walked with Chief Alvin to the caravan in the back with a smile. According to the plan that the Lampari Kingdom and the Sac Kingdom had agreed on, the Lampari Kingdom sending this large caravan to the Sac Kingdom meant that the free trade zone between the two countries would reopen. Although was the most important company representative in this caravan, the new flyer wasn't a company that belonged to the Lampari Kingdom, so they couldn't represent the Lampari Kingdom in the upcoming free trade zone reopening ceremony. His main purpose in coming to the Sac Kingdom this time was to show his attitude. It meant that the new flyer would officially cooperate with the Sac Kingdom, indirectly showing the Lampari Kingdom's sincerity in cooperating with the Sac Kingdom. So in the following ceremony, even if was just a bystander, whether it was Chief Alvin or Mayor Pugh, as long as they had free time, they would pay attention to him. In the end, the new flyer was the main character of this cooperation. Only the main character that the Sac Kingdom attached the most importance to wasn't shown here. After the grand ceremony was over, the Lampari Kingdom's caravan moved their goods into the shops that Tucklin Town had already prepared in the free trade zone. Many of these caravans were companies that already had a foothold in Tucklin Town, and there were many that hadn't come before. Because the free trade zone between the two countries had reopened and they had expanded the scope of the free trade, they had also come. For these new companies, the Sac Kingdom and Tucklin Town had built a large number of shops together, expanding the free trade zone by 2 times. The Frestec Chamber of Commerce also obtained a rather large store, which would be the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's first store in the Sac Kingdom. Of course, this store would only sell the household magic machines of a new flyer. As for the military magic machines that the Sac Kingdom cared about the most, how could they sell them in public? After the ceremony, he didn't go to the banquet prepared by Mayor Pugh with everyone. Rather, he secretly followed a middle-aged man who came with Mayor Alvin to Mayor Pugh's private manor outside the town. When he walked into the manor's main hall, Su-yi felt a killing intent that almost materialized hit him. Chapter 805. Su-yi's eyes swept over the hall, and he saw several faces filled with the aura of soldiers. Of course, there was also a chubby guy who looked quite amiable at first glance. However, mixed in with these guys who only lacked the words, "I am a soldier," carved on their faces, even he was tainted with a bit of murderous intent. Feeling the killing intent from these people, Su-yi revealed a smile. He walked over to the middle-aged man, who looked like a merchant with a friendly smile. "Major General Toft, I'm very happy to see you again." The middle-aged man, who looked like a merchant called Major General Toft, restrained the killing intent in his eyes and reached his hand out to Su-yi with a smile. "Chairman Su, being able to see you here, I'm also very happy." Su-yi nodded before looking at the people on the side and asking, "These should be the generals of your Sack Kingdom's army, right?" Hearing Su-yi's question, one of the middle-aged men who looked to be in his early 40s and was the youngest among them gave a cold snort. "I thought that Su-yi was some kind of great person, but it turns out that he's just an ordinary young brat." Su-yi looked at him and ignored his provocation. He turned to Major General Toft and said with a smile, "It seems like your country's army isn't sincere in cooperating, so I came here for nothing. Goodbye." Seeing that Su-yi was about to leave, Major General Toft was shocked. He quickly grabbed Su-yi and turned to look at the middle-aged man who had just spoken before saying to Su-yi with a smile, "Chairman Su, you mustn't misunderstand. Our cooperation is very sincere. There isn't a trace of falsehood. Otherwise, we wouldn't have sent all these people to meet you. Don't you think so?" Su-yi looked down at Major General Toft's hand on his arm before looking up at the middle-aged man and calmly saying, "If you're sincere in cooperating, then please don't waste time talking nonsense." Of course. Although he knew that Su-yi was just pretending, hearing Su-yi's gentle tone, Major General Toft couldn't help wiping the cold sweat off his forehead. Being able to meet Su-yi this time, it could be said that the Sack Kingdom had paid a large price. If Su-yi left because of a single sentence, Major General Toft didn't dare imagine what would happen next. In fact, he didn't agree with the military sending these fellows to participate in this negotiation from the very beginning. However, the military used the excuse that they were all generals who had participated in real battles on the front lines and knew the true needs of the soldiers for military magic machines and forced them to come over. As expected, once they saw Su-yi, these high-ranking generals who had suffered a loss at the hands of the large amount of military magic machines the new flyer had given to the Lampari Kingdom's northern army, it was like they had met a life-and-death enemy. They didn't hide their hostility towards Su-yi at all. If this was a normal negotiation, they could be considered giving Su-yi a show of strength and laying a good foundation for the following negotiations. But the two sides were not equal since the beginning because this was the Sack Kingdom's demand for the new flyer. The new flyer didn't care about this negotiation at all, so what qualification did the Sack Kingdom have to show the other side? Of course, Major General Toft never thought that Su-yi's temper would be this big. He actually showed such a strong attitude, acting like he didn't care if they talked or not. It was a pity that Su-yi didn't have to talk, but the Sack Kingdom had to talk. Moreover, they had to make Su-yi satisfied. Thinking of this, Major General Toft could only give a bitter laugh in his heart. He thought that the army headquarters really didn't give him a good job this time. After finally pulling Su-yi back to his seat, Major General Toft thought for a bit before deciding to follow Su-yi's words. He didn't waste any time and directly took out the agreement that the army headquarters had prepared, handing it to Su-yi. "Chairman Su, this is the list of military magic machines that we want to buy from your company. Please take a look." Major General Toft gave a part of the agreement to Su-yi, carefully observing Su-yi's expression. Su-yi took the list and carefully looked it over, but his expression didn't change at all. But after looking over the list, Su-yi thought for a bit before shaking his head. "Major General Toft, this is a bit different from what we discussed before. We aren't planning on selling the long-range magic cannons right now, so we can't give them to you." Major General Toft said with a laugh, "This can be discussed. Last time we only discussed it through an intermediary, so it was a bit inconvenient. This time we can finally sit down and discuss it face to face, so of course we can talk. Don't you think so, Chairman Su? No, since we've already decided on the list last time, we can't easily change it. Major General Tofk, if your side does this, it will make me feel that you don't want to keep your promise. Su, he said in a cold voice. Major General Tofk's expression froze as he felt a bit unhappy. As a Major General of the Sack Kingdom's army headquarters, although he was normally in charge of logistics, dealing with merchants and seeing all kinds of people, this was his first time seeing a fellow like Su Yi. Chairman Su, is there no room for discussion at all? Major General Tofk asked with a frown. Su Yi put down the list and looked at Major General Tofk with a look of surprise. If I remember correctly, before I came here, we had already agreed on this. I came here this time to represent New Flyer in signing an agreement with you. There isn't anything else involved, right? Major General Tofk was speechless. Both sides had indeed agreed on this before, because they had already discussed this many times in private, so they had already decided on the content of the agreement. But even if they had decided before, could it be that they couldn't change it now? He didn't believe that Su Yi, as the New Flyers chairman, wouldn't understand this. Perhaps he could see through Major General Tofk's thoughts. Su Yi continued, I understand your side's thoughts, but at least for now, we don't have any plans to deepen our cooperation. Major General Tofk, do you understand what I mean? Hearing Su Yi's words, Major General Tofk wasn't disappointed. Rather, his eyes lit up. At least not for now. Didn't that mean there would be in the future? Since Chairman Su insists, then I won't waste words. Major General Tofk took the list from Su Yi's hands and crossed out the long-range magic cannons. This was something the army headquarters had marked out as a test. So even if Su Yi didn't agree, it didn't have that much of an effect. This cooperation between both sides, whether it was the New Flyer or the Sack Kingdom, it was a mutual test. It could even be said that the Frestek Chamber of Commerce being willing to cooperate with the Sack Kingdom, having the possibility of selling military magic machines to them, was already enough to make the Sack Kingdom's army headquarters happy. It had to be known, they had to go through very difficult smuggling channels before to secretly obtain a small amount of military magic machines from the lords of the Lampari Kingdom and the Principality of Constantine. Now that New Flyer was willing to sell military magic machines to the Sack Kingdom, the benefits were far greater than this. Su Yi looked over the list and finally asked Major General Tofk for the contract the Sack Kingdom's army headquarters drafted. After raising a few small problems, he quickly signed his name on it. On the surface, the process of signing this agreement seemed very sloppy, but in fact, this agreement involved a huge transaction. According to the contract, New Flyer would provide the Sack Kingdom with over 5 million gold coins worth of military magic machines. Although there were only some low-end military magic machines, New Flyer's first transaction with the Sack Kingdom was already over 5 million gold coins, so it wasn't a small deal. After signing the contract, Su Yi didn't stay at all and directly said goodbye to Major General Tofk. Major General Tofk only pretended to keep him before letting Su Yi leave. When Su Yi left Mayor Pugh's manor, the heavy atmosphere in the hall instantly disappeared. The middle-aged general who had provoked Su Yi before spat in the direction Su Yi left in and angrily said, "Pay." A villain intoxicated by success. Isn't it just a few new things? He actually dares to be this arrogant. The other generals looked at each other and revealed bitter smiles at the same time. Although it was very simple, Su Yi had just made a few new things, but the Sack Kingdom was in such a sorry state because of these new things, even almost facing the crisis of the kingdom. Speaking of arrogance, Su Yi did have the qualifications to be arrogant. There was no other way. The military magic machines had an incomparable effect on battle. This was something that had been proven in the countless battles between the Sack Kingdom and the Lampari Kingdom. Now the Sack Kingdom's army agreed that if the Sack Kingdom's army couldn't equip themselves with military magic machines, they wouldn't have any chance of winning against the Lampari Kingdom. This problem wasn't something that could be solved by the soldiers going all out. So when the army headquarters received the information that Su Yi was willing to sell the military magic machines to the Sack Kingdom, The entire army headquarters was filled with excitement. They quickly began private negotiations with a new flyer. If it wasn't for the Lampari Kingdom's sudden declaration of war messing up their plans, they would have already signed this agreement with a new flyer. In front of being able to equip their soldiers with the military magic machines they dreamed of, what did Su Yi's arrogance count for? But I feel that something is wrong. A middle-aged man whose hair was half white looked in the direction Su Yi left in and said in a doubtful voice, "Could it be that the new flyer is really willing to sell us something that has a decisive effect like the military magic machines? Could it be that Su Yi doesn't know that this will increase the strength of our Sac Kingdom's army and be disadvantageous to the Lampari Kingdom?" "Yeah, I've always felt that this might be a trap," another middle-aged general agreed. Another middle-aged man chimed in, "Perhaps the new flyer doesn't have good intentions in selling us these military magic machines. They might even sell us some broken goods." "Right, I also feel the same." "That's right, the new flyer shouldn't do this no matter what." Hearing the discussions of his colleagues, Major General Toft looked at the contract with Su Yi's name on it and carefully put it away. Then he looked at his colleagues and said with a bitter smile, "I say, everyone, could it be that you still don't understand? Even if the new flyer sells us a pile of trash, we can only accept it. Or rather, even if we know that this is a trap, we can only jump in. You have to know, as long as we can obtain anything related to the military magic machines, the army headquarters is willing to pay any price, because we have no other choice." The hall instantly fell silent. Everyone stopped talking and looked at each other, finding that the other side had helpless looks. Chapter 806. Not every person of the Sac Kingdom was like the officers of the army headquarters, being forced to work with the new flyer like they had eaten a bitter fruit. At least most people of the Sac Kingdom welcomed the arrival of the new flyer. After the new flyer set up a service center in Tucklin Town, the people of the Sac Kingdom could buy the most authentic Shinfei brand household magic machines through the service center. They could also obtain the legendary new flyer's new and perfect after-sale service that was like a spring breeze. This was a service that was hard to obtain from other companies before. For the people of Tucklin Town, the arrival of the Frestac Chamber of Commerce was a joyous matter worth celebrating. When Mayor Pugh welcomed the Lampari Kingdom's caravan on behalf of Tucklin Town, even if the new flyer wasn't the main character, whether it was Mayor Pugh or Chief Alvin, they had introduced the new flyer as the most important thing. It was very simple. The new flyer not only wanted to set up a service center in Tucklin Town, they would also choose a place outside Tucklin Town to build a household magic machine production base. According to the plan, this production base would take up at least 50,000 square meters. There would be a magic fan factory, a magic air conditioner factory, a magic refrigerator factory, and a magic lamp factory. Like this, the Shinfei brand household magic machines would be produced in the Sac Kingdom, which would reduce the Sac Kingdom's tariffs. It would reduce the price in the Sac Kingdom and benefit many people. But what the people of Tucklin Town cared about wasn't this. Rather, it was the job opportunities that would come with this production base. According to the plan revealed by the new flyer's chairman Su Yi at the welcoming ceremony, after the initial 4 factories were built, they would recruit at least 5,000 local workers. 5,000. Adding up all the people in and out of Tucklin Town, there were only 3,000 people. The initial 4 factories of a new flyer production base could take in all the people of Tucklin Town, and it was far from being enough. This didn't just mean that the people of Tucklin Town wouldn't have to worry about jobs. It would even benefit the people of the surrounding area. This was the job of the new flyer. It had to be known in the surrounding countries. Working for the Frestac Chamber of Commerce was a dream for almost everyone. Although the Frestac Chamber of Commerce's wages weren't the highest, the various benefits that the Frestac Chamber of Commerce's workers enjoyed were things that the other companies couldn't compare to. As for the companies in the Sac Kingdom, they weren't even worthy of carrying shoes for the Shinfei merchants. As soon as the news spread, Tucklin Town and the surrounding areas were in an uproar. Countless people flooded into Tucklin Town and expressed their desire to work in New Flyer through the New Flyer Product Service Center. But the response they received was that they would only announce the recruitment after the first Magic Fan assembly factory was built. so they hoped that everyone wouldn't be in a rush. Of course, people shouldn't be too disappointed. This was because even though the new flyer still needed some time to start recruiting, the other companies that came with the new flyer had already started recruiting. The fastest was the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. The caravan sent by the Lampari Kingdom this time included all the major companies of the Lampari Kingdom. The new flyer had a cooperation with the Lampari Kingdom, so they weren't an exception. Among these companies, the one that the Sac Kingdom attached the most importance to was the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. According to the agreement, the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce would help the Sac Kingdom build a main road network. The first road would start from Palermo town in the northern province of the Lampari Kingdom that was closest to the border between the two countries. It would pass through the Muerto Mountains and Tucklin town before finally connecting to the Sac Kingdom's capital, Nordham City. Once this road was built, it would mean that the Lampari Kingdom and the Sac Kingdom would have a direct connection for the first time. Whether it was its political significance or its practical use, it was very important. So the Sac Kingdom attached great importance to this road. Not only did Chief Alvin, a company chairman, cruise the entire time, the Sac Kingdom's parliament had also sent various people to help, ensuring that this road could be built smoothly. Of course, building this road required large amounts of workers. Even if the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce had brought large amounts of skilled workers, they still recruited large amounts of manual labor from the Sac Kingdom, according to the agreement. Just to build the first 210-kilometer road from the border to Tucklin town, the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce had recruited 1,700 workers from the Sac Kingdom at once. Even the experienced and knowledgeable Chief Alvin was taken aback by the scale of the project. Moreover, because the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce was close to the new flyer, they also tried their best to give benefits to the new flyer. Even for the 1,700 workers that they recruited, the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce actually gave them work injury insurance, compensation for serious illnesses, heat subsidies, and other benefits that most people in the Sac Kingdom had never heard of before. So when the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce's recruitment notice was released, there were countless people who came to apply. Following this, the other companies of the Lampari Kingdom that came with the new flyer and the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce announced that they would be investing in various factories in Tucklin town, creating a wave in the Sac Kingdom in a short period of time. Go to Tucklin town. This was the consensus of almost everyone in the Sac Kingdom. The normal citizens wanted to go to Tucklin town to find good jobs. The merchants wanted to go to Tucklin town to find more business opportunities. And the nobles wanted to go to Tucklin town to learn and see if they could pull these companies to their territory. As for the high-level members of the Sac Kingdom, they were all focused on Tucklin town. This cooperation in Tucklin town was just an attempt for the Lampari Kingdom, but for the Sac Kingdom, it was a rare opportunity. The Lampari Kingdom had changed because of a new magic machine industry led by the new flyer, increasing their national strength in just a few short years. If the Sac Kingdom could grasp this chance, they might be able to suppress the Lampari Kingdom again. So when the Lampari Kingdom's caravan came to Tucklin town, this town that didn't have any fame in the Sac Kingdom had become the center of attention of the entire Sac Kingdom. Countless people came from all over the Sac Kingdom, and in less than half a month, this small town had become an incomparably prosperous place. Hey, 70. Don't you feel that this situation is like Banta City in the past? Sutley put down the Lampuri Weekly in his hand and asked 70, who was sipping warm water, this question. The peace negotiations between the Lampari Kingdom and the Sac Kingdom, as well as the actions of both sides, the Lampuri Weekly, had followed the entire process. As for the various changes in Tucklin town, the Lampuri Weekly had described them in detail and even made a bold prediction. They said that Tucklin town would become the industrial and economic center of the Sac Kingdom in the future, even having a position that wouldn't be inferior to the royal capital, Lordaeron City. This prediction seemed a bit exaggerated now, but based on the development of Tucklin town, it wasn't impossible, because this situation was indeed very similar to Banta City in the past. However, when 70 heard Su Yi's question, she put down her teacup and shook her head. It only looks like it on the surface, but it's actually very far from it. Vanna City had your new flyer in the past, so it became the first real magic machine industry city on the continent. As for this Tucklin town, I don't believe that you'll give them the core technology. Sui laughed. Of course. Then he changed the topic, but speaking of core technology, 70. What do you think of my proposal? 70 slightly knit her brows. After thinking for a bit, she said with a nod, adding classes related to the magic machine industry in the various schools isn't bad, but this is teaching theoretical knowledge. It's not as attractive as directly teaching technical knowledge. In the end, if you learn the technology, you can enter the magic machine companies as a high-level worker and earn quite a bit. But if you learn theoretical knowledge, how can you see the results? That depends on how determined you are, Sui said with a faint smile. Right now, other than our new flyer, the other magic machine companies don't invest enough in magic machine industry research. They don't attach importance to it at all, so naturally other people don't attach importance to it. Our company attaches importance to talents in this field and gives them high wages, but just our company alone isn't enough to change everyone's thoughts. If your Lampari kingdom can invest in this, it will be completely different. Of course, I understand the importance of theoretical research. The problem is, how do you want me to attach importance to it? If we just add classes in the schools and there aren't any benefits to attract people, I don't think there's any meaning. This is very simple. As long as you're willing, we can start with the first step of training people. For example, our Frestec Chamber of Commerce has set up a special bursary fund in the schools of the Lampuri Kingdom, especially providing funds for students studying the magic machine industry and giving them a chance to work for our company after they graduate. What do you think? 70 gave a soft snort. You're clearly using the resources of our kingdom schools to train people for your company. You think I can't see through this? Sui laughed. This is mutual benefit. If these people are trained, it doesn't mean they'll stay in our company to work. As long as the Lampari Kingdom's companies can attract them, it wouldn't be strange for them to come back to the Lampari Kingdom, right? 70 was silent for a bit before giving a sigh and shaking her head. Forget it. I know that you can use all kinds of reasons to convince me. So why would I argue with you? All right, it's decided like this. I will propose this to the kingdom's parliament, and if it passes, I will urge the schools to implement this policy as soon as possible. But Sui, I need your new flyer to cooperate. This is something I proposed. How could I not cooperate? Sui replied with a smile. Chapter 807. After having lunch with 70 in the royal palace, Sui sat in his magic sedan and left the royal palace, heading out of Anvilmar City. But he didn't go far. Rather, he came to the foot of a barren mountain in the southwest of Anvilmar City. Looking up from the foot of the mountain, one could see that there was a steel tower at the top of the mountain that was already half erected. Looking up, it was quite a spectacular sight. This steel tower was, of course, the magic signal tower that New Flyer had been promoting recently. Since 70 asked New Flyer to build a magic communication line from the Principality of Constantine to Anvilmar City, New Flyer had been sending people to work on this matter. Of course, the Principality of Constantine's New Flight Commerce main base was over 1,000 kilometers away from Anvilmar City, so it would take several years to build a line like this. In this situation, 70 asked the Frestec Chamber of Commerce to help Anvilmar City set up a magic communication network that covered the entire city. According to Akali's research on the magic resonance technology, she had already successfully differentiated the resonance frequencies of the magic array. She could use different magic communicators to talk to different people through the same magic signal tower. Although it couldn't compare to the cell phones on Earth, it could allow a small number of magic communicators to talk to each other freely. That's right, the magic communication network that covered Anvilmar City cost 760,000 gold coins, but it only served less than 50 people, including 70. Of course, compared to connecting the New Flight Commerce main base to Anvilmar City with a distance of over 1,000 kilometers, the estimated cost was a shocking 13 million gold coins, but it only served Sui and 70. Compared to this, it wasn't enough at all. Hey, how is that possible? Sui gave a laugh and shook his head. The criticism of the magic communication network between the Principality of Constantine and Anvilmar City was common in the newspapers of the Lampari Kingdom. Although most of the newspapers didn't dare make it too clear, the meaning was that they were accusing Her Majesty 70 of wasting people's money for her own selfish desires. This small magic communication network only served 2 people. It really couldn't be justified. 70 never gave an explanation for this, but New Flyer had given an explanation for this magic communication network through the Lampuri Weekly and the other newspapers. According to the data released by the Frestac Chamber of Commerce, even if the people that the magic communication network could serve were prioritized, the Frestac Chamber of Commerce kept making breakthroughs in their research. In just a few years, they would be able to make everyone freely use the magic communication network. At that time, anyone could use this magic communication network to talk to another person on the same network. The newspapers described this scene like a poem, and there were many people in the Lampari Kingdom who were fascinated by this. But there were also many people who doubted this. It was a good thing that since 70 took the throne, she had led the Lampari Kingdom to develop better each year. So her prestige in the kingdom was very high. So even if there were people doubting this, it didn't affect the overall situation. The Frestac Chamber of Commerce had always had a good image in the eyes of the Lampuri Kingdom citizens. Adding in the fact that the Frestac Chamber of Commerce had always done things that were novel to countless people they couldn't understand at first. So now that they had made this magic signal tower and this magic communication network, it wasn't much at all. Countless people were looking forward to it. When New Flyer could make a breakthrough in the magic communication network technology, realizing the scene described in the Lampari Weekly, that would make people happy. Speaking of this, last time Samo Count said that he wanted to make a magic communication network in Seoul City, but Seoul City doesn't use this thing that much. He muttered with a frown. He looked up at the magic signal tower on the mountain, and his magic surged as he flew up from the foot of the mountain. As soon as he landed on the mountain, Akali's eyes swept over him. "Hey, Sir Chairman, are you done talking to Her Majesty?" "Not only are we done talking, we're also done eating." He turned to look at the Frestac Chamber of Commerce's technical staff and the Amrit Chamber of Commerce's workers who were still working and asked, "Looking at your appearances, you haven't eaten yet, right?" "Eat?" Akali looked up at the sky and said in a surprised voice, "So it's already this time? I thought it was still morning." She rubbed her stomach after saying this and revealed a bitter look. "Sir Chairman, it's all your fault. I wasn't hungry at first, but now that you've mentioned it, I can't take the hunger anymore." He couldn't help smiling as he shook his head. He turned to look at the others and clapped his hands before saying in a loud voice, "All right, everyone stop what you're doing and prepare to eat lunch." The Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce workers naturally didn't have any objections, but the New Flyer technicians all looked at Akali. Akali rubbed her stomach and waved her hand. "All right, since Sir Chairman has spoken, then everyone should prepare to eat." The Frestac Chamber of Commerce's benefits were very good, so before they built this magic signal tower, they had already done all the logistical work. Although this place was a bit far from Ambilmar City, they had already prepared a place to live and a place to cook. With the various household magic machines that New Flyer made, life was quite convenient. But Sui saw that Akali wanted to eat with her subordinates, so he pulled her back. "You don't need to go. Come with me. I'll treat you to this meal." Akali was surprised. "Didn't you just say that you already ate?" "The problem is that I still need to eat." He gave a shrug. He pulled Akali and turned to fly down the mountain. Akali was a bit confused, but after thinking about it, she obediently followed behind. The two entered Su Yi's magic sedan that was parked at the foot of the mountain. When they started it, Su Yi asked Akali, "Akali, if nothing unexpected happens, our company will be cooperating with the Lampari Kingdom to create a magic machine research center near Ambilmar City. Are you interested in being the director of this center?" Akali blinked. "Sir Chairman, what did you say?" "All right, I know you've heard me clearly. Speak, are you interested?" Akali was in a daze for a bit before a bit of hesitation appeared on her face. "Sir Chairman, you're suddenly telling me this. I'm not prepared yet. So I'm telling you now to let you prepare yourself." He said with a smile. "Actually, there's no need to prepare yourself. With your current position in our company, you are the most suitable person to be the director of this research center. Moreover, you can also be in charge of setting up the magic communication network. It's the best of both worlds, isn't it good? But wouldn't I have to run to the Lampari Kingdom to work? Don't forget, you're still a citizen of the Lampari Kingdom. Su, he said. Oh, I really forgot. Just like Akali, when a new flyer left the Lampari Kingdom, they had taken many citizens of the Lampari Kingdom with them. These people had been working in the Principality of Constantine and the new flyer, living in the Principality of Constantine for many years. Most of them had already forgotten that they were citizens of the Lampari Kingdom. When King Eric was on the throne, he had judged these people as traitors of the Lampari Kingdom and stripped them of their citizenship. But after 70 took the throne, she immediately declared this judgment invalid and welcomed them back to the Lampari Kingdom on behalf of the Lampari Kingdom. But these people were already used to working and living in the new flyer, so there weren't many people who chose to go back. Akali had long forgotten that she was a citizen of the Lampari Kingdom, but now that Su-e reminded her, she remembered. But this is no use, Akali complained. I've lived in the Principality of Constantine for all these years. I've even brought my father, mother, and little brother's family over. Now you want me to go back to the Lampari Kingdom. That means that you're planning on being Evita's subordinate forever. Su-e suddenly said. Akali was surprised again. After pausing, her eyes suddenly lit up. Sir Chairman, you mean that? The director of this research center is on the same level as Evita. Strictly speaking, there's a difference in level, but this research center isn't managed by the research facility. It is directly under the leadership of the company, which is me. So, you understand. Su-e said with a faint smile. Really? That's great. Akali gave an excited cheer. She lowered her head to think for a bit before looking up at Su-e with a smile. All right, Sir Chairman, let me consider it for 2 days before replying, all right? No problem. Su-e replied before turning the steering wheel. The magic sedan suddenly took a large turn and left the main road to Anvilmar City, heading to another road that led to another suburb of Anvilmar City. Sir Chairman, weren't you planning on inviting me to a meal in the city? Akali asked in a confused voice. Inviting you to the city isn't wrong, but before that, we have to pick up some guests first. Su-e replied. Guests? Akali was even more confused. What kind of people were so important that Su-e had to personally pick them up? Chapter 808. The magic sedan carried Su-e and Akali out of the southern suburbs of Anvilmar City. They went around the southern part of Anvilmar City before stopping at a fork in the road that was 5 kilometers away from the East Gate. To the east of this fork was the second road from the Lampari Kingdom to the Mirando Duchy, and to the north was the road to the Drake Duchy. Because the road to the Mirando Duchy was newly built, whether it was in terms of width or condition, it was better than the road to the Drake Duchy. But Su-e was clearly focused on the road to the north of the Drake Duchy with a look of expectation in his eyes. Akali looked at Su-e and couldn't help teasing him. Hey, Sir Chairman, could it be that Princess Caroline is coming? Su-e turned back in surprise and saw Akali's secret smile. He immediately understood what she meant and gave a laugh. That's right, Princess Caroline is coming. What? Akali was just joking, but she never thought that it would be true, so she was stunned. Hey, Sir Chairman, are you secretly meeting Princess Caroline behind Steele's back? Meeting your head. Su-e snappily reprimanded her. If it really was a private meeting, why would I bring you along? Akali giggled. Perhaps you did it on purpose. You were just afraid that Steele would misunderstand. Su-e looked at her. Then tell me, if Steele knew that I was meeting Princess Caroline in private, would she misunderstand? Akali rolled her eyes, and after thinking about it, she gave a dejected sigh. All right, she wouldn't. That fellow never cared about how many women you were in contact with. She was very assured of you, and even hoped that you would find more women. I really don't understand what she's thinking. She's just too considerate of me and always suppresses her own feelings. Su-e gave a sigh. After pausing, he said to Akali with a serious look, Akali, you and Steele are good friends. There are some things that you should talk to her about rather than me. Tell her for me that I hope that she can be more selfish in the future and think about her own feelings. She doesn't need to wrong herself for me, all right? Akali looked at Sue E in a daze for a while, with a strange expression on her face. I say, Sir Chairman, you should be the one to talk to her about this. If I say it, people who don't know the situation would think that I'm trying to drive a wedge between you and your wife. I'm having you say this. What are you worried about? Sue E was stunned. Anyway, I won't do it. You can say it yourself. Akali gave a soft snort and turned her head, clearly not wanting to accept Sue Yi's explanation. Sue Yi didn't understand why Akali had this reaction. He knit his brows, and when he wanted to say something, he saw Akali suddenly point at the road to the north. They're here. Sue Yi turned to look and found that on the road to the north, there were several magic sedans mixed in between the large amounts of transport magic cars and the few traditional horse carriages that appeared. The two magic sedans in the front had bright colors, which made people focus their attention on them. The magic sedan in the front was completely red, and when it quickly drove down the road, it was like a ball of fire passing over the earth. The magic sedan following behind was bright yellow, reflecting the rare warm sunlight of early spring. As it quickly passed through the traffic, it was even more eye-catching than the fire-red magic sedan from before. When they first saw these magic sedans, they were at least 2 to 3 kilometers away from the fork, but after a while, they were only a step away from the fork. When they were about to reach the fork, the fire-red magic sedan in front suddenly braked and stopped 5 meters away from Sue Yi's magic sedan, looking a bit dangerous. The bright yellow magic sedan behind it was clearly caught off guard. It came to a sudden stop at the fork in the road, but it was already close to 100 meters away. Get out. Sue Yi said this to Akali before opening the door to get out. The driver's door of the fire-red magic sedan on the other side opened, and a beauty with a face as beautiful as a flower came out. She was even more attractive than the fire-red magic sedan beside her under the sunlight. It was Princess Caroline who Akali had just mentioned. Hey, dear Sue E, have you been waiting here for a long time? Princess Caroline raised her hand to greet Sue E with a bright smile. But when she saw Akali coming out from the other side, the smile on her face froze before she revealed a look of understanding. Isn't this the dear, young Miss Akali? Hey, young Miss Akali, do you still remember me? Akali didn't have a good look at her. Looking over her, she nodded and gave an sound from her nostrils as a response. Princess Caroline acted like she couldn't see her attitude at all. She came over with a smile and said with an excited look, Young Miss Akali, I remember that you're mainly responsible for researching magic array resonance technology, right? During this time, your new flyer has been promoting magic signal towers and building a magic communication network, so you're the main person in charge, right? I'm very interested in this. Can you tell me more about it? Hearing Princess Caroline ask about her profession, and in New Flyer's plans, the Drake Duchy would be an important customer for the Magic Communication Network, so Akali couldn't keep this cold look on her face. She nodded and began explaining to Princess Caroline. Sue E on the side saw this scene, and he couldn't help secretly laughing in his heart. He was very clear that Akali was acting like this to Princess Caroline because she was venting her anger for her good friend Steele. Speaking of this, Princess Caroline was just an innocent bystander who had been implicated by him. However, how good were Princess Caroline's communication skills? For someone like Akali who immersed herself in research all day, how could she be her match? Sue E didn't disturb their conversation and turned to look at the bright yellow magic sedan that had charged over. He saw that car suddenly roar out as it suddenly moved back. However, this move was too fast, and the magic sedan was like a wild horse that had broken free. It instantly moved several dozen meters and slammed into a large tree on the side of the road, creating a large honk sound. This large sound scared Princess Caroline and Akali who were talking. The two of them looked over in surprise and saw the door of the bright yellow magic sedan open as a young man rolled out. Princess Caroline slightly knit her brows. After thinking for a bit, she walked over and asked in a voice filled with concern, Seymour, are you all right? This young man, whose face was a bit pale from the sudden crash, was the son of his good friend who came with the Marquis of Southgard last time. Seymour. I'm fine. Hearing Princess Caroline's voice, Seymour, who was still in shock, suppressed the shock on his face and revealed a smile that was uglier than crying. However, when he turned to look at the bright yellow magic sedan, his expression immediately collapsed. "Oh my God, I only bought this car less than a week ago. It's actually destroyed like this." When Seymour wasn't looking at her, Princess Caroline quickly rolled her eyes before saying with a smile, "Don't worry, Seymour. Chairman Sue is here. It's fine if your car is broken. He could just find someone to fix it for you." Chairman Sue? Seymour was stunned before finally reacting. He turned to Sue and revealed an awkward smile. "Ah, Chairman Sue, you're here. I'm sorry. I was racing with Princess Caroline and didn't notice that you were here." Sue knit his brows. He pointed at the countless magic cars, the occasional horse carriage, and the pedestrians on both sides of the road before saying in a deep voice, "Princess Caroline, Your Excellency Seymour, I must seriously warn you that if you want to race, please go to a professional race venue. Whether it is the Lampari Kingdom or our Principality of Constantine, there are venues that can be used for you at any time. But the roads aren't suitable for racing. It's very easy for danger to appear." Princess Caroline was a bit surprised before sticking out her tongue in a naughty manner. She said with a smile, "All right, I understand. Many thanks for Chairman Sue's reminder." Seymour curled his lips with a look of disdain, clearly not listening to Su Yi's words at all. Su Yi looked at him and was too lazy to care about him. He turned to look at the other 3 magic sedans that were coming from the north. Seymour turned to look at his yellow magic sedan that had its butt smashed, and his heart hurt a bit. He wanted to ask Su Yi for help, but because he had just been taught a lesson by Su Yi, he felt a bit dissatisfied. After thinking about it, he gave a cold snort and didn't speak. After a while, the 3 magic sedans slowly stopped at the fork in the road. The back door of the magic sedan in the middle opened, and the Marquis of Southgard came out with a familiar smile that Su Yi was familiar with. "Chairman Su, I'm very happy to see you again." The Marquis of Southgard raised his hand to greet Su Yi. Being able to see Sir Marquis again, I'm even more happy." Su Yi quickly walked over with a wide smile. After waving his hand to greet the Marquis of Southgard, his eyes fell onto an old man with white hair and a red face who came out of the car on the other side. This old man was wearing a dark blue magician's robe. One could tell with a single glance that it was made of high-quality materials and had fine workmanship. It definitely wasn't a normal product. However, compared to the clothes itself, what was more eye-catching was the water pattern symbol on the chest. If one were to take a closer look at this symbol, they would discover that it was not an inanimate object. Instead, it was reflecting light like a wave under the sunlight. Occasionally, one could even see the waves rolling, as if it was really a wave. A magician that could have this mark on their chest could only be a great magician that had been certified by the Sorcerer's Guild. Moreover, beside the wave mark, there was a less eye-catching mark that showed his other identity. This great magician came from the city in the sky, Signs Magicians Union Headquarters. Chapter 809. The old magician looked at Su Yi and revealed a smile of deep meaning. "Your Excellency Su Yi, should I call you Chairman Su? Or Your Excellency Great Magician?" Su Yi revealed a smile and gave him a magician's greeting. After standing up, he proudly said, "It's better to call me Chairman Su. Everyone is more used to this identity of mine, and I prefer to be addressed as such. Your Excellency Ferguson, I've troubled you to come all the way here. It really makes me feel uneasy." The old magician gave a sigh and shook his head, but then he revealed a smile. "If it was before, I could only ride those old horse carriages here. After traveling 3,000 kilometers from the city in the sky, it would indeed be a bit tiring. But riding your new Flyer's Magic sedan this time, the journey was much shorter and it wasn't that tiring. Many thanks for Your Excellency's praise. Of course, if the Malar Empire and the Fog Kingdom could be connected by roads, I believe that your journey would be much easier and more comfortable," Su Yi said with a faint smile. The Marquis of Southgar on the side gave a laugh. "Chairman Su, you don't need to remind me in a roundabout way. Relax, since I'm here this time, it means that I've made my decision. I think that you will definitely be very happy with my decision." "Oh, that really is great." He laughed as he gave an inviting gesture to the two of them. Since it's like this, please come into the city with me and slowly discuss it. It's clearly not suitable to talk on the side of the road, right? Let's go. The Marquis of Southgard and Sir Alex Ferguson looked at each other before nodding and getting into the magic sedan again. He gave a hand signal to Akali and Princess Caroline. The two understood and got into their magic sedan to prepare to set off. Only Seymour looked at his bright yellow magic sedan in a daze before looking at hesitating to speak. Sir Seymour, the back of this car is only slightly flattened. It won't affect its use. You can drive it into the city first. I'll arrange for someone to fix it for you. Okay. Seymour first revealed a look of pleasant surprise before forcing it down. He quickly returned to his magic sedan and found that there was no problem when he started it. So he quickly drove off with a smile on his face. Seeing the bright yellow magic sedan disappear into the distance, knit his brows. He got in the magic sedan and drove off in the direction of Anvilmar City. However, didn't bring them into Anvilmar City's city walls. Instead, he brought them to the outskirts of Anvilmar City, about 2 kilometers away from the city's southern gate. Although this was the outskirts of the city, looking around, one would find that there were tall buildings all around. There were waves of people moving around, and it didn't seem any less lively than Anvilmar City. This was a new district that Anvilmar City had opened in the past 2 years. Compared to the industrial base to the west, this was a new business district. There were many shops and restaurants that belonged to the large companies of Anvilmar City gathered here. The most luxurious Chanel restaurant in Anvilmar City had opened a branch here. Because it wasn't limited by the land in the city, it was 10 times bigger than the oldest Chanel restaurant in the city. Of course, the main thing was that it was used as a parking lot. The parking lot was a new concept that had only appeared in the Lampari Kingdom in the past 2 years, or more accurately in Anvilmar City and Bana City. Before, the large restaurants would only prepare a small parking lot for the guests who came in horse carriages. But as the new Flyers magic sedans became more and more popular in the Lampari Kingdom, reaching the point where almost every noble and merchant had one, there weren't enough parking lots for the large restaurants. Seriously speaking, the reason why Anvilmar City opened up a new commercial district in the southern part of the city was mainly because of the need for parking lots. Moreover, this place wasn't far from Anvilmar City, but the surrounding environment was much cleaner than Anvilmar City. It only took 10 minutes to drive a magic sedan here, so after this branch was opened, it was even more popular than the Chanel restaurant from before. If it wasn't for making an appointment today, with all of them here, not to mention finding a place to eat, they wouldn't even be able to find a place to park their cars. When Suyi's group was led by the Chanel restaurant's doorman to the reserved parking lot, when they got out of the car, they heard a voice cursing behind them. Damn, why do they have a place to park their cars and we don't? Is your Chanel restaurant looking down on us? Let me tell you, Father is a member of the Festelin family. If your Chanel restaurant looks down on me, does that mean you're looking down on my grandfather? Sui looked back with knitted brows and saw a young man who was clearly drunk pointing his finger at them with an arrogant look on his face. Seeing Sui look over, he glared back at him. What are you looking at? I don't know where this small merchant came from, but you dare act this arrogant? Do you know who I am? Before he could finish, someone suddenly came out from the side and covered his mouth. The latter half of his word were stuck in his throat, and he could only make gurgling sounds, but he couldn't say a single word. He looked at Ankh Aaron, who was covering his mouth with a bit of a smile. Your friend? Ankh Aaron nodded at Sui with an awkward smile. He is Duke Festelin's grandson. He just drank a bit, so his words aren't accurate. Please don't take offense. I thought that after you opened your company, you would break away from your previous social circle, but it seems like you haven't changed at all. He shook his head before asking. You just said that he drank? He's drunk, so he's speaking nonsense. Please don't take it seriously. Even if Ankh Aaron was the chairman of the famous Ankh Magic Chamber of Commerce in the Lampari Kingdom and was considered a person with some status in the Lampari Kingdom, in front of Sui, he could only act in fear, not daring to be disrespectful at all. He still remembered the shadow left in his heart when Sue-E caught him gambling. But at the same time, he was grateful to Sue-E for giving him a chance to turn over a new leaf, allowing him to become a person that many people respected. Drunk. Then did he drive this car here? Sue-E pointed at the pure white magic sedan beside that person and asked this. Hank Aaron turned to look before nodding. It's his car. Us friends were gathering somewhere else and didn't think that it was that good. So we came here to discuss, but we never thought that we would meet you here. These people they aren't related to you for now. Sue-E shook his head to cut off Hank Aaron's probing before pointing at that person. Driving while drunk, you should know what kind of punishment there is. Send him to the security office yourself. There's no need for me to explain anything else. Hank Aaron was stunned before his expression changed. He had actually forgotten about this. Although New Flyer had been promoting magic sedans in the Lampari Kingdom, they had always strictly inspected the qualifications of driving magic sedans. Even if New Flyer had given the driver's license to the Lampari Kingdom, there were still some rules that had been added. The Lampari Kingdom's parliament had never rejected any of the suggestions that New Flyer made. Among these rules, the punishment for driving a magic car while drunk was very serious. Now that his friend had been caught by Sue-E, according to the rules, he couldn't drive a magic car for at least 3 months. Hank Aaron gave a bitter laugh. When he was about to respond, the young man whose mouth he had been covering suddenly pulled his hand away and pointed at Sue-E as he cursed. What kind of thing are you? You actually dare to meddle in father's matters. I think that you don't want to stay here anymore, right? Do you believe? He didn't finish the rest of his words. But this time, Hank Aaron didn't cover his mouth with his hand. Instead, he slapped his palm on his back. Light green magic flickered in his palm. It was unknown what magic he used, but Hank Aaron fainted cleanly. Sue-E looked at Hank Aaron with a bit of surprise. I never thought that your magic power would have grown in the past few years. Hank Aaron quickly said with a smile, I normally have more contact with magic machines, so I have more time to study magic. Of course, this can't compare to you at all. You are now the great. Sue-E raised his hand to cut him off. All right, I said that this matter isn't related to you, but I've changed my mind. Give him to your other friends and come with me. Hank Aaron was stunned. He looked at the people behind Sue-E who had been smiling the entire time. He found that other than a young man who had his nose in the sky and didn't look much different from his friend, the other people all had different auras. Putting aside the 2 beautiful young ladies, that middle-aged man definitely came from a large noble family, so he wasn't ordinary. And that old magician was actually a great magician from the Magicians' Union headquarters. These people were with Sue-E, so it was clear that they weren't discussing normal matters. Now that Sue-E actually allowed him to follow him, didn't that mean that he would have the opportunity to participate in their discussion? Hank Aaron only felt that his heart was beating several times faster. He hurriedly placed his unconscious friend in the hands of his other friends who had rushed over and said, I'm sorry, I can't accompany you for the time being. Then he walked over to Sue-E with a smile on his face. His other friends stared blankly at the unconscious person in their hands and then looked at Hank Aaron, who was smiling like a flower. They were all confused. This guy, was he drugged today? Chapter 8:10. So it's President Aaron's son. No wonder you look familiar. Sir Alex Ferguson nodded at Hank Aaron with a smile. I originally wanted to visit President Aaron after meeting Chairman Sue, but I didn't expect to meet his son first. How has President Aaron been recently? Hank Aaron hurriedly bowed in return. Thank you for your concern, Sir Great Magician. My father has been in good spirits recently, and his magic power has also increased. The various affairs of the Union have also been going smoothly, so as his son, I can rest assured. Oh, President Aaron's magic power has increased? I wonder if you made any breakthroughs? Great Magician Ferguson asked in an interested voice. I'm not sure about that. My father only said that because he has been researching magic machines for the past 2 years, he has gained some insight into magic research. He also mentioned that his strength has increased, but he didn't tell me the specifics. It's related to magic machines again. Sir Alex Ferguson turned his head to look at Sue-E sitting diagonally across from him and sighed. Chairman Sue, I originally thought that the magic machines of your new flyer were only helpful in improving the lives of ordinary people. I didn't expect that they could also help us magicians increase our strength. This is really surprising." Sui laughed. "You flatter me. President Aaron's strength has increased because of his own focused research. Magic machines and the like have at most given him some inspiration. No, for magic casters of our level, it's extremely rare for us to be able to gain even a little bit of inspiration in magic research. I've always been very surprised that Minter Carmilla hasn't had any major breakthroughs in the past few years, but she has continuously made breakthroughs in the past few years. She even became a respected archmage in one fell swoop. Now that I think about it, I'm afraid that it has something to do with helping your Chamber of Commerce research magic machines. I actually feel that this is only due to Minter Carmilla's accumulation of knowledge. She just happened to have some results in the past few years." Suyi's response was not purely out of modesty. More importantly, he still did not understand the significance of Sir Alex Ferguson's sudden visit. When Sui received the news that the Marquis of Southgard was going to visit the new flyer again, he was very happy because it meant that the Marquis of Southgard had made up his mind to come and talk about cooperation with the new flyer. This also meant that the new flyer had a good start in the Malar Empire and laid a good foundation for the promotion and development of new flyer in the Malar Empire in the future. Moreover, the Marquis of Southgard was very enthusiastic about the new flyer and the magic machines, which was the complete opposite of the Canla Empire. If they cooperated with the Marquis of Southgard, the magic machines would definitely be able to be promoted smoothly in the Malar Empire. As long as they could fully promote the magic machines in one of the two empires in the signs, Sui would be able to take a big step towards his dream of popularizing the magic machines in the entire continent. Moreover, if the magic machines could be popularized in the Malar Empire, the Canla Empire, as one of the two empires, would obviously be affected. It was very likely that it would significantly improve the extremely difficult development environment for the new flyer in the Canla Empire. However, after the Marquis of Southgard sent a message, the Sorcerers Guild of the Lampari Kingdom also sent a message saying that the Mainland's Magicians Union headquarters would also send a representative from the Sky City, Sir Alex Ferguson, one of the 13 members of the Union Management Council, to meet with Sui. The message did not explain the purpose of Sir Alex Ferguson's visit, but it only stated that he would be representing the Magicians Union headquarters to discuss with Sui and did not reveal anything else. This was a little strange. Logically speaking, new flyers still had Minter Carmilla, who could be regarded as the highest level of magician in the entire continent. It was really puzzling that the Sorcerers Guild would specially send a great mage just to meet with Sui and not for Minter Carmilla. What was even more strange was that Sir Alex Ferguson would be coming with the Marquis of Southgard. Sui was very puzzled as to how the two of them were connected, so it was natural for him to be cautious when he did not know their purpose. Speaking of which, Chairman Sui, how many mages are working for New Flyer now? Sir Alex Ferguson suddenly changed the topic. Sui hesitated for a moment, but still answered truthfully, "So far, including myself, there are a total of 2,736. 2,736? Sir Alex Ferguson had a look of surprise on his face. He was obviously surprised by this number. Chairman Sui, I think, other than the armies of the various countries on the continent, there is no other organization on the continent that has as many mages as your Chamber of Commerce, right? Sui raised his eyebrows slightly, and a trace of vigilance rose in his heart. The hidden meaning in Sir Alex Ferguson's words. Could it be a warning? Other than the armies of the various countries on the continent, the organization with the most mages? This title was not a good thing for the new flyer, because it would make the new flyer even more vigilant. You flatter me. Sui laughed. Although the number of mages in our Chamber of Commerce is not small, most of them are only around the 3rd or 4th level. They can't be compared to the armies of those countries. Besides, they're only working for our Chamber of Commerce, and will not risk their lives for the army like the mages in the army. Is that so? Sir Alex Ferguson smiled and muttered to himself for a moment before continuing. Chairman Sui, actually within the Union of Magicians, The new flyer has always been highly regarded. Oh, that's really delightful. But can you tell me why? Su E and the others sitting around the table all had expressions of interest. The Continental Sorcerers Guild was the unified organization of all the mages in the signs and had great power on the continent. Sometimes, it even had more say than the two empires. Although the new flyer could be considered as the top chamber of commerce in the nearby countries, it was not considered the top chamber of commerce on the continent. Why was it valued so much by the Magicians' Union headquarters? Only the Marquis of Southgard smiled, as if he knew what Sir Alex Ferguson was going to say next. The reason is very simple. It's because of the number of 2,736 mages you mentioned just now, and also because you said that most of them are around the 3rd or 4th level. Sir Alex Ferguson smiled. Please tell me. Sir Alex Ferguson smiled. I'm sure President Allen must have mentioned this to you. But since I'm here to bring it up, I'll take this opportunity to express the attitude of the Union of Magicians. Su E quickly sat up straight and nodded, looking like he was all ears. Sir Alex Ferguson pondered for a moment, as if he was thinking about how to phrase it. After a moment, he opened his mouth. Chairman Su, do you know what the purpose of the Continental Sorcerers Guild was when it was first established? Su E quickly recalled the general principles of the Continental Sorcerers Guild that he had previously skimmed through, but he realized that he had long forgotten the specific content. But of course, this was not a problem for him. Some of the various organizations on Earth flashed through his mind, and he replied, I think it should be to unite all the mages on the continent, so that all the mages have a common organization, and to seek benefits and provide support for everyone, right? Generally speaking, that's right. Sir Alex Ferguson smiled and nodded. But these things, to be more specific, or to be more realistic, are to help all the mages better survive. Do you understand what I mean? Su E nodded. I think I understand what you mean. For a great mage or magister like you, you naturally don't have to worry about survival. But for most of the low-level mages, they don't have much advantage over ordinary people. It's actually not easy for them to survive better. Yes. Moreover, ordinary people can learn other skills without any psychological burden and work hard to improve their lives. But since mages know that they have an extremely rare talent for magic, then almost no one is willing to give up this talent. Everyone in the room, not only Su E, Akali, and Ank Aaron, who are magicians, couldn't help nodding in agreement with Magician Ferguson's words. Even Marquis Southgate and Princess Caroline, who weren't magicians, couldn't help nodding in agreement. Mages were special to everyone in the signs. When they knew that they had the talent for magic, and that they had the possibility of becoming a mage, no one would give up and would do their best to achieve this dream. Only Seymour secretly curled his lips, disdainful of these words. He was born in a large, noble family, and there were many mages among the guards in his family. And these mages were usually respectful towards him, without the slightest bit of arrogance that mages should have. This made him feel that mages were no big deal. If he really had to say, he would probably only put great mages and archmages in his eyes. But thinking of this, Seymour suddenly remembered that Su E wasn't just the president of the New Flyer. He was also a powerful great mage. This fact made him feel a little discouraged. No matter how unconvinced he was of Su E, he was afraid that he couldn't compare to Su E in any aspect. No mage would give up on studying magic unless they had no other choice. But for the majority of low-level mages, it is possible that they could spend their entire lives studying magic, and it would be difficult to improve. And this would take a lot of time, energy, and money. Great Magician Ferguson said this and stopped to give a deep sigh. Su E and Akali's faces were also slightly heavy. Not to mention Su E, this guy who had transmigrated. Akali was a typical low-level mage born and raised in the signs. She knew better than anyone else how difficult it was for a low-level mage like her to come all the way here. If she hadn't met Su E, she was afraid that she would be like most low-level mages for the rest of her life. Due to the limitations of her circumstances, she would be forced to stay at the level of a low-level mage for the rest of her life. She wouldn't be able to receive the attention of high-level mages or even great mages and it would be very difficult for her to be willing to become a normal person again and learn a skill to rely on herself. Thinking of this, Akali looked deeply at Su-yi. Apart from gratitude, there was also a trace of bitterness in her eyes. If only I could have met this guy earlier. Chapter 811. When Sir Alex Ferguson said this, Su-yi roughly understood what he meant. President Aaron had indeed mentioned this to him before when the new flyer was still in the Lampari Kingdom. Because the new flyer had directly recruited as many as 300 3rd and 4th rank mages from the Lampari Kingdom Sorcerers Guild certification exam, President Aaron had privately found Su-yi and praised him and the new flyer. President Aaron said that the new flyer had provided jobs for so many low-level mages. Not only did it allow them to have a stable and decent income, but it also allowed them to continue researching magic at the same time. Although creating and researching magic machines for the new flyer couldn't be considered true magic research, for these low-level mages, being able to come into contact with large amounts of magic materials every day and personally arrange magic arrays was a very rare opportunity. It allowed them to gain sufficient magic experience and effectively improve their magic level. The facts had also proven this point. After a period of time, the mages who worked for the new flyer would always have an obvious improvement in their magic level. Moreover, the speed of improvement was much faster than most of the low-level mages who didn't work for the new flyer. The Lampari Kingdom Sorcerers Guild had detailed statistics on this, so of course, they were very clear about the role that the new flyer played in this. Therefore, even though President Aaron didn't like Su-yi at the beginning, he had always maintained a supportive attitude towards the new flyer. Afterwards, the conflict between Ankh Aaron and Su-yi was resolved. Ankh Aaron had even set up his own company with Su-yi's help. It could be said that he had turned over a new leaf. This made President Aaron change his view of Su-yi and support the new flyer even more. Now, as long as a mage registered with the Sorcerers Guild in the Lampari Kingdom, they would be clearly recommended to work for a magic machine company during the mage certification exam. And among the magic machine merchants, which one of them could compare to the new flyer? Thus, in recent years, New Flyer had been able to recruit more and more magicians. This year, they had even recruited more than 500 magicians. This number didn't seem like a lot, but if one thought about the fact that there were less than 10,000 mages in the entire Lampari Kingdom, and about 2,000 of them were between level 3 and level 5 mages, one would know that this number was actually quite astonishing. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that New Flyer had more than 60% of the magicians between the 3rd and 5th rank in the Lampari Kingdom. Of the remaining 40%, about 10% were mages who were qualified enough to conduct research on their own, while about 30% had joined other magic machine merchants in the Lampari Kingdom. Therefore, the new magic industry developed by the Shinfei Chamber of Commerce had almost perfectly solved the problem of survival for most of the low-level sorcerers in the Lampari Kingdom. For the Sorcerers Guild, whose mission was to protect the interests of magicians, this was undoubtedly a great contribution. Now that the Magicians' Union headquarters had suddenly sent someone over, Sir Alex Ferguson had set the tone at the beginning. The meaning of the Magicians' Union headquarters was very clear. Sure enough, Sir Alex Ferguson then praised the New Flyer's contribution in this regard, and also praised Su-yi on behalf of the Magicians' Union headquarters, saying that he was one of the few outstanding magicians in the continent who could truly consider the certification of his fellow magicians. Sir Alex Ferguson, you're too kind. I'm only doing this because the development of the Chamber of Commerce requires the contribution of my fellow magicians. I didn't think too much about it. I really don't deserve such praise from the Union headquarters. Su-yi was still very cautious and didn't take credit for himself. He had always believed in a saying, if you give an engine for nothing, you're hiding evil intentions. For the Magicians' Union headquarters to suddenly send someone over, and it was even a great magician who was a member of the Union Parliament, the standard was not low. Thus, the goal they wanted to achieve was not that simple. Before he found out, he obviously wouldn't express his opinion. Sir Alex Ferguson was old and experienced, so how could he not see the thoughts behind Su-yi's attitude? He smiled slightly and glanced at Aaron, who was listening at the side, and decided to get to the main topic. Chairman Sue, after the Union Parliament's discussion, they feel that New Flyer's model is very worthy of support and promotion. Thus, they sent me over this time to observe the situation of the magicians in New Flyer, and also to cooperate with New Flyer in some aspects. Cooperation? Sue raised his eyebrows, thinking that the Union headquarters was quite polite. How does the Union headquarters want me to cooperate? Sue only said that he would cooperate, but he didn't ask for New Flyer to cooperate. First, he was a magician, so he didn't need to cooperate with the magicians' Union headquarters in name. Second, he temporarily removed New Flyer from the picture and left some leeway. Of course, great magician Ferguson could hear the meaning in Sue Yi's words, so he continued with a laugh. Actually, the guild has always been worried about the survival of low-grade magicians. Now that we know of the existence of your Frestech Chamber of Commerce, we hope that we can promote it. As for the specific method, first, the Union Parliament has passed a resolution, hoping that New Flyer will be listed as a partner of the Continental Sorcerers Guild. What do you think, Chairman Sue? Once these words were said, everyone in the room couldn't help but reveal a surprised expression. A partner of the Continental Sorcerers Guild? This term wasn't particularly new because before this, there were many precedents of the continent's Magicians Guild listing some chambers of commerce as designated chambers of commerce. But these companies that were listed as cooperating companies by the continent's Magicians Guild, each one of them was a first-class company of the Signs continent. They were all famous on the continent. Although New Flyer could be considered a top-notch company in the surrounding countries, it was still far from being one of the top companies in Signs. It was really unexpected that the Magicians Union headquarters would want to list New Flyer as a partner. Everyone looked at Sue E. Everyone was very sure that this was a good opportunity for New Flyer to make its name known throughout the continent. However, Sue E. was only surprised at first. Then he pondered for a moment and asked, as a partner of the Continental Sorcerers Guild, what should our company do? Sir Alex Ferguson had an appreciative smile on his face as he nodded and said, different partners have different projects. Although we can't decide what to do at the moment, according to the results of our discussion, the Union is inclined to cooperate with New Flyer to improve the living conditions of the low-level mage teachers and students. This result wasn't surprising. After all, Sir Alex Ferguson had been talking about this for a long time. Then what should we do specifically? Sue asked again. Sir Alex Ferguson laughed and shook his head. I don't know about this right now. I'm here this time to see how New Flyer does it and learn from it. As for what to do specifically, of course, I'll have to wait until I see it before I discuss it with Chairman Sue. Sue nodded to show that he understood. Sir Alex Ferguson had made it very clear that he was here as a representative of the Magicians Union headquarters to take a look. As for what to do specifically, he obviously wouldn't make a decision immediately. Although Sue still had a trace of doubt, the Magicians Union headquarters' decision to list New Flyer as a partner was indeed a very good opportunity for New Flyer. Because the Sorcerers Guild had a strong influence on the Signs, every partner that could be listed as a partner by them could be considered a super first-class company on the continent. Now that New Flyer had obtained their recognition, as long as the news spread, it would definitely make New Flyer the focus of the entire continent. Of course, with New Flyer's current strength, it was still a long way from becoming a super first-class company on the continent. The Magicians Union's decision this time was probably not because of New Flyer's strength, but because of the fact that they could improve the living conditions of low-level mages. As for other aspects, Sue wasn't sure, but he wasn't in a hurry to react. So, you intend to go to the Principality of Constantine with us? Sue asked. I'm not busy. I have to meet President Aaron first to discuss some matters. I'll go to the Principality of Constantine in a few days. Sir Alex Ferguson smiled. You and the Marquis of Southgard don't have to worry about me. You can go first. Sue turned to look at the Marquis of Southgard. Seeing him nod, he knew that he had probably communicated with Sir Alex Ferguson on the way here and was very clear about his arrangements. All right, I'll wait for your arrival in the Principality of Constantine. Sir Alex Ferguson nodded and leaned back in his chair with a relaxed posture. It was obvious that he had ended his conversation with Sue E. Ank Aaron immediately took the opportunity to approach Sir Alex Ferguson in a low voice. Sue E. turned to the Marquis of Southgard and introduced a colleague to him. Then he said, "Sir Marquis, you expressed interest in the construction of the automatic water supply system last time. Now, I'd like to recommend another infrastructure project to you. Akali's research team is in charge of it." "Oh." The Marquis of Southgard looked at Akali in surprise. "Is it the magical communication network that Miss Akali mentioned just now?" Chapter 8:12. 3 days later, the Marquis of Southgard, Sue E., and the others returned to the Principality of Constantine. If it was said that the Marquis of Southgard was just here to take a look the first time he came here, his goal this time was very clear. After inspecting the new Flyer's water system in the Principality of Constantine, he signed the first contract with a new Flyer without any hesitation. The content of this contract was to bring the water system from the new Flyer to the Malar Empire. Of course, because this was their first tentative cooperation, the scale of the contract wasn't that big. The Marquis of Southgard just wanted to bring the water system to the small town on his territory, so it would only cover an area of less than 5 square kilometers. According to the estimates, the new Flyer would provide the Marquis of Southgard with 5 sets of magic water pumps, as well as the water pipes and valves. The total price of the deal was set at 48,000 gold coins after both sides agreed on it. If the same contract was signed with the Lampari Kingdom or the Kingdom of Ruhr, the total price would be 2,000 to 3,000 gold coins lower. The reason was that the Malar Empire was further away from the new Flyer, so to transport the magic water pumps and the other components over, it would cost more than if they were in the Lampari Kingdom or the Kingdom of Ruhr. So although the price was higher, the new Flyer's profit had decreased. But since this was the first cooperation between the new Flyer and the Marquis of Southgard, it could be considered the first cooperation between the new Flyer and the Malar Empire, so it had a great significance. It was normal to give some benefits. Moreover, with the automatic production magic machines being installed in the various factories of the new Flyer, the cost and time it took for new Flyer to produce most magic machines had been greatly reduced. Even if there were some benefits, the new Flyer's profit was much higher compared to 2 years ago. The water system was something the Marquis of Southgard had decided on the first time he came, so naturally the contract was signed very smoothly. But for the roads that the Marquis of Southgard placed importance on, as well as the magic communication network that Sue E. recommended to him, the Marquis of Southgard had considered it carefully before finally making his decision. But the magic communication network was fine since the Marquis of Southgard could keep experimenting on his territory. So he also smoothly signed a contract with a new Flyer to introduce the magic communication network, which involved a total of 76,000 gold coins. As for the roads, the Marquis of Southgard knew that there wasn't much meaning in just laying down roads on his territory. So after he discussed this with Sue E. and the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce's representative, Chairman Cruz, he decided to put it aside for now. After he returned to the Malar Empire, he would try to convince the Malar Empire's parliament to build a road connecting the Fok Kingdom and the Malar Empire's capital, Angelo City. If there were no accidents, the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce's road in the Fok Kingdom would be completed at the same time. That way, the Fok Kingdom and the Malar Empire would be connected to the road network in the southwest of the Signs, making it very convenient to travel between the two sides. Angelo City was over 3,000 kilometers away from the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's main base. This time, Marquis Southgate had come all the way from Angelo City to the Drake Duchy's main city, Filio City, that was over 1,300 kilometers away, had taken him close to a month. And when they arrived at Filio City, it only took them a day to reach the Lampari Kingdom's capital, Anvilmar City, which was more than 800 kilometers away. This was the huge difference between having a road and not having one. If there was a road that led directly to Angelo City, it would only take a few days to reach the new Flight Commerce main base from Angelo City. Apart from the infrastructure, the Marquis of Southgard had already seen the convenience brought by the various household magic machines produced by New Flyer. How could he let go of this opportunity? So this time, He directly signed an agreement with New Flyer and planned to cooperate with New Flyer to build a few household magic machine assembly factories on his private territory. He even volunteered to give up 2 mines on his territory and decided to work with New Flyer to share the various mineral resources. But he also gave a request, which was that these mineral resources couldn't leave the Malar Empire. So in the end, Su-Yi decided to set up a steel mill and a non-ferrous metal smelting factory on his private territory. They would smelt the metal ores and send them to the household magic machine factories they had a joint venture with. According to the plan that the Marquis of Southgard proposed, his final goal was to transfer the New Flyer's model to his private territory. He wanted to turn his territory into a modern magic machine industry base, like the New Flight Commerce main base in Bana City. This term was of course taught to him by Sui. Sir Marquis, I admire your foresight and magnanimity. Based on this, I feel that the attitude that you represent the Malar Empire is much more open than the Kanla Empire. I believe that you and the Malar Empire will definitely benefit from this open attitude. Su-Yi saw the Marquis of Southgard sign his name on the final agreement and put his seal on it, revealing a satisfied smile. He had been running around with the Marquis of Southgard these past few days, while also negotiating nonstop, so he was really tired. Now, for the time being, it could be said that the dust had finally settled, allowing everyone to breathe a sigh of relief. The Marquis of Southgard was also a bit tired, but there was a sparkle in his eyes. It was clear that his heart wasn't calm either. Chairman Su, our Mala Empire is much better than the rotten Kanla Empire. If your New Flyer wants to cooperate with someone, our Malar Empire is definitely a much better choice than the Kanla Empire. If it was said that the Marquis of Southgard was only curious about the New Flyer when he first learned about the amazing household magic machines, then after the in-depth understanding and investigation of the New Flyer last time, and this time, he deeply felt the great power and immeasurable potential of the Xinfei Chamber of Commerce. He was very sure that the emergence of the New Flyer had deeply affected the countries in the southwest corner of the continent, and it would definitely affect other countries in the future. If the Malar Empire woke up too late in this aspect, then it was very likely that they would fall behind. Through the previous and this time's observation of these countries, especially the Lampari Kingdom that was the most deeply affected by the New Flyer, he was very sure of this point. But he wasn't certain that he could convince those stubborn fellows in the Empire, so he didn't plan on convincing them and planned on using reality to convince them. As long as he brought the New Flyer to the Malar Empire and let everyone see the powerful charm of these magic machines, he wouldn't need to convince them at all, and there would be countless people in the Empire who would rush over. Thinking of this, the Marquis of Southgard looked at Su-Yi and gave a sigh in his heart. Actually, compared to the changes in infrastructure and the household magic machines, he cared more about the military magic machines that he had heard of, but had never seen before. According to the rumors, the military magic machines of the New Flyer were incomparably powerful and could increase the battle strength of an army by several times. The reason why the Lampari Kingdom could easily suppress the Sak Kingdom that had suppressed them for several hundred years was because the New Flyer had provided them with large amounts of military magic machines. For such an important thing, the Marquis of Southgard naturally hoped that he could bring it to the Malar Empire if it was feasible. However, Su-Yi had always been tight-lipped about this. Even if the Marquis of Southgard pretended to accidentally mention it, Su-Yi would immediately change the topic. After confirming Su-Yi's attitude, the Marquis of Southgard could only give up this idea for now. This was the first time they were working together, so Su-Yi should be cautious. When they worked together for a long time, the Marquis of Southgard believed that there would be a chance to discuss the military magic machines with Su-Yi. Just like Su-Yi said, the New Flyer was a company in the end, and he cared more about his identity as a merchant than his identity as a great magician. Since the New Flyer made military magic machines, they would definitely want to sell them. As long as the New Flyer was willing to sell them, everything was fine. In these considerations, there was a problem that always bothered the Marquis of Southgard, making him feel a bit uneasy. When he came to the New Flight Commerce main base last time, he had accidentally met the Vice Chief of Staff of the Camlet Empire's Navy, Remito Russell. The Marquis of Southgard had directly faced this guy on the battlefield before and knew that he was listed by the Malar Empire's military as one of the people to be wary of in the Camlet Empire. He knew that he was definitely not the kind of guy who would run around for no reason. So the last time he appeared in the New Flyer, he must have some kind of purpose. What the Marquis of Southgard was worried about was that his purpose might be related to the military magic machines produced by the New Flyer. It was even possible that the Camlet Empire had privately reached some kind of agreement with the New Flyer regarding the military magic machines. If this was true, then it was really not good. However, looking at the always smiling Sue-E, the Marquis of Southgard firmly suppressed the doubts in his heart. There was still a long way to go, so he could not rush. Chapter 8:13. Sir Alex Ferguson arrived at the Principality of Constantine the day after the Marquis of Southgard and the New Flyers signed the agreement on the steel mill joint venture. He did not come alone. Palms Allen, the president of the Lampari Kingdom Sorcerers Guild, and several other important figures of the Lampari Kingdom Sorcerers Guild were with him. They were obviously there to accompany him. What surprised Sue was that there were a total of 50 low-level mages registered in the Lampari Kingdom Sorcerers Guild. Seeing these people, Sue-E naturally thought of the matter that Sir Alex Ferguson had mentioned to him before. Chairman Sue, if I ask you to help us solve the problem of the survival of these 50 mages, is there a problem? Sir Alex Ferguson looked at Sue-E with a smile. His tone was relaxed, as if he was just asking Sue-E to prepare lunch for them. Sue-E's expression did not change. His gaze drifted over the 50 mages. The youngest was probably less than 20 years old, while the oldest was probably more than 60 years old. Judging from the magician's insignia on their chests and the unstable magic waves they emitted, the power of these 50 mages should be very low. It was very likely that there was not even a level for mage among them. That depends on what kind of result you want, Sir Alex Ferguson, Sue-E replied calmly. If it's just to ensure that they can survive in the future, it's very simple. Of course, it's not that simple. Sir Alex Ferguson shook his head. I hope that you can solve the problem of their survival while also solving the problem of their magic research. Sue-E frowned slightly. Forgive me, but I can't agree to this. Sir Alex Ferguson was stunned by Sue-Yi's straightforward rejection. He narrowed his eyes and said, Chairman Sue, I remember that the last time we met, you agreed very quickly. I only agreed to help the Union improve the living conditions of the low-level mages, but I didn't promise to do it all myself, did I? Sue-E asked with a smile. Sir Alex Ferguson frowned and stared at Sue-E, as if he was thinking about the meaning of Sue-Yi's words. Sir Alex Ferguson, if the Union only wants me to help solve the problem of their 50 mages, then I can agree to it. With the current strength of the New Flyer, it's not too much of a burden to support another 50 freeloaders. Idle. Great Magician Ferguson slightly raised his voice, and there was a trace of anger in his voice. Chairman Sue, how can you look down on your fellow mages? Sue-E chuckled and shook his head. Sir Great Mage, our New Flyer is a chamber of commerce, not a charity. For the sake of the Sorcerers Guild, we can support 50 of our fellow mages for free. This isn't a problem. But what if this number becomes 500, 5,000, or even 50,000? Do you think our New Flyer can afford it? Sir Alex Ferguson suddenly fell silent. After a while, he shook his head and sighed. Of course not. It looks like Talucci was right. You won't agree to this plan. Great Mage Talucci? Sue-E was stunned. You met him? Although Great Mage Talucci had joined the New Flyer a long time ago, he had always been working in the R&D Center in the Lampari Kingdom, so he hadn't met Sue-E many times. Yes, I made a special trip to meet him before coming here. Because he also works in your New Flyer, I naturally wanted to ask for his opinion. After he knew of my plan, he didn't hesitate to express his opposition, saying that you wouldn't agree to this plan. It looks like he understands you better than I do. Sue-E cursed in his heart and then asked, Then, Sir Alex Ferguson, was your previous plan to stuff people into our Chamber of Commerce and let us take care of their problems? Sir Alex Ferguson laughed. Actually, this is just a preliminary plan from the headquarters. I'm just trying it out. Since Chairman Su doesn't agree, then forget it. But Chairman Su, can you give a better plan? Sui didn't think that Sir Alex Ferguson would be so easy to talk to. After thinking for a bit, he said, "When we met last time, didn't you praise our Chamber of Commerce for driving the magic machine industry and solving the problems of many low-level mages and giving them an environment to study magic? Since you understand this point, why did you propose this plan? This clearly doesn't make sense. First, this is what the council told me. I'm just following orders. Second, I want to see if you'll really agree." Great Magician Ferguson looked at Sue E with a gaze of deep meaning. But as I expected, it's just as Talachi said. Although you're a great mage, you're still a merchant most of the time. This plan really didn't get your approval. Sue E gave a shrug, not feeling embarrassed at all. He had always insisted that his identity as a merchant was more important than his identity as a mage, and this had never changed. Although this was somewhat unbelievable to most other mages. Not only was he a powerful great mage that countless mages couldn't become in their lifetime, but he was also the president of the most successful Chamber of Commerce in New Flyer. Therefore, no one questioned him like before. As I said, our Chamber of Commerce can deal with 50 people or even 500 people, but our Chamber of Commerce can't deal with 5,000 or even 50,000 people. No Chamber of Commerce on this continent has the ability to deal with them, so of course I won't accept this plan because this is really... Sue E hesitated for a moment and didn't finish the second half of his sentence. But at this moment, a voice sounded from behind him and finished his sentence. "This plan is too stupid. I really don't know how the headquarters came up with it." Hearing this voice full of disdain, Sir Alex Ferguson didn't show any anger. Instead, he revealed an awkward smile, turned around, and solemnly bowed to the person who came. "Your Excellency Camilla, this plan is only a preliminary plan made by the Parliament without understanding the situation of New Flyer. They didn't have any intention of forcing Chairman Su to carry it out. Now that I've come here and talked with Chairman Su and seen the influence of the Shinfei Chamber of Commerce, I've already rejected this plan. The only person who could make him, a great mage from the Magicians' Union headquarters, be so respectful was obviously one of the top mages in the signs, Minter Carmilla." Minter Carmilla walked over and nodded. "That's more like it. What do you plan to do now?" Sir Alex Ferguson smiled slightly and turned to look at Sue. "Of course, this depends on Chairman Su's plan." Archmagus Camilla also looked at Sue E. "All right, kid, look at your confident appearance. It's clear that you already have an idea. Tell me, it'll make Ferguson feel at ease." Sir Alex Ferguson's eyes lit up. "Chairman Su, so you already have a mature plan?" "It's not a mature plan, but I have some ideas." Su E waved his hand and smiled. "Sir Alex Ferguson, the purpose of a union is to let all the low-level mages find a suitable living environment, while ensuring their livelihood, at the same time allowing them to continue exploring the mysteries of magic, right? If you look at it from his point of view, working in New Flyer is indeed very suitable. Yes, if you work in New Flyer, not only will you get a very good salary, you will also be able to enjoy all kinds of benefits, and more importantly, you will be able to come into contact with magic every day. It's simply the most suitable job for these low-level mages," Sir Alex Ferguson said excitedly. "But have you ever thought of a question? Even if you let all 50 low-level mages work in our Chamber of Commerce, would they be able to do it?" So he asked again. Sir Alex Ferguson was startled. "What's there not to be able to do? Isn't it just setting up some simple low-level magic arrays? I think any mage should be able to do it, right?" Sue E smiled, but did not answer, and turned to look at Minter Carmilla. What a joke. Minter Carmilla snorted heavily at the right time. "If it were really that simple, do you think our Chamber of Commerce would only have 2,000 mages? Let me tell you, magic machines are very delicate things, and the mages who set them up are also very skilled. Normal mages are simply not qualified to do it. Do you understand what I mean?" This. Sir Alex Ferguson turned to look at the 50 low-level mages and found that none of them had any look of dissatisfaction on their faces. Instead, they all looked dejected, as if they agreed with Mentor Carmilla's words. This situation made Sir Alex Ferguson very puzzled. During this period of time, he had done some research on the magic machines produced by New Flyer and the Sheen-Fei Chamber of Commerce. He was sure that most of the magic arrays engraved on the magic machines were very low-level magic arrays. In his opinion, any normal low-level mage should be able to do it easily. Why do these 50 low-grade mages all seem to find it very difficult? Even Archmagus Camilla had a serious attitude about it. Sir Alex Ferguson, let them join our New Flyer directly. This plan can only treat the symptoms, but it is far from being able to solve the root of the problem. If we want to achieve the goal of improving the living conditions of most low-level mages, we have to start from the most basic place, and that is to raise their level. He said seriously. Sir Alex Ferguson frowned. Everyone's magic talent is different. How can it be so easy to raise their magic power? No, I'm not talking about raising their magic power. I'm talking about raising their ability in the magic machine industry. Sir Alex Ferguson looked at Sue in confusion. What was the so-called ability in the magic machine industry? Chapter 814. A week later, when the Marquis of Southgard left the Lampari Kingdom, Sir Alex Ferguson left with a proposal that Sue had personally written for the Magicians' Union headquarters. Although the contents of the proposal were discussed by Sue and Sir Alex Ferguson over the past few days, most of the time, it was Sue who did the talking and Sir Alex Ferguson who only listened. After interacting with Sue during this period of time, Sir Alex Ferguson had to admit that when it came to overall planning, especially when it came to business, he was much worse than Sue the president of New Flyer. Many of the suggestions he made were easily rejected by Sue and he even agreed that his suggestions were too hasty. In the end, the contents of the proposal mainly revolved around how to solve the problem of the environment for low-level mages and teachers in science. Suyi's solution to this problem was that he hoped that the Sorcerers Guild could promote the positive effects of the magic machine industry, so that the mages on the continent could properly understand what kind of work they could undertake if they joined a company like New Flyer that manufactured magic machines. This would allow them to put down their unnecessary reservations as mages and choose to join a magic machine company. In this way, New Flyer could vigorously promote the development of the magic machine industry, allowing more companies to design the magic machine industry to appear on the continent, thus creating more jobs that even low-level mages could participate in. Of course, this wasn't unlimited. Take New Flyer as an example. Although most of the mages in the company who were responsible for arranging the magic arrays were between the 3rd and 5th level, it wasn't surprising that any low-level mage could do this job. On the contrary, as New Flyer's research on magic machines became deeper and deeper, the new products produced became more and more refined, and the requirements for the mages in charge of arranging the magic arrays also became higher and higher. Sui was certain that for the low-grade magicians that could arrange magic arrays in the Frestech Chamber of Commerce, any one of them could be considered a magic array expert among low-grade magicians, even surpassing most high-grade magicians. Therefore, in this proposal, Sui suggested that the Sorcerers Guild should point out this point when promoting the magic machine industry, so that the low-level mages on the continent wouldn't have any wishful thinking. Logically speaking, magic research required focus and hard work, and the work related to magic machines obviously couldn't lack these factors. According to the development prospects in Suyi's proposal, as long as the magic machine industry could be smoothly developed on the signs, there would eventually be a large demand for low-level mages. This way, not only would most of the low-level mages have a decent income, they wouldn't have to worry about making a living, and they would also be able to come into contact with magic arrays through this job. At the same time, due to the high requirements for magic arrays and magic machines, their understanding of magic arrays would be greatly deepened, and their magical abilities would be indirectly increased. This point could be clearly proven by the 2,000 or so mages employed by New Flyer. Even if the 2,000 magicians of the Frestech Chamber of Commerce weren't enough, adding in the over 8,000 magicians of the 237 magic machine companies in the Lampuri Kingdom, the Rudsun Kingdom, and the surrounding countries, it was also enough to prove this point. Of course, low-level mages didn't only refer to level 3 to level 5 mages, but also the more numerous primary and level 2 mages that could be called the cornerstone of all mages on the continent. These low-level mages were the main body of mages on the continent, and were also the group of people that the Magicians' Union headquarters cared about the most. After a mage reached level 3, they would at least have a certain amount of magic power. Even if they didn't join a magic machine company, it was still a good choice to join a company as a guard or join a noble. However, the magic power of a primary and level 2 mage was too weak and wasn't much stronger than that of an ordinary person. Therefore, in most cases, they couldn't find a job that could make use of their magic power. Even if they joined a magic machine company, they wouldn't be able to take on a job. Previously, he didn't care about these things, but this time, Sir Alex Ferguson came to him on behalf of the Magicians' Union headquarters and mentioned this point to him, and he began to pay attention to it. That's right, 3rd to level 5 mages were the main force of magic machine companies and were the foundation of the entire magic machine industry. Only New Flyer had higher-level mages and mages joining magic machine companies, so it was something that could only be imagined but unattainable. However, if the primary and level 2 mages were completely ignored, there would be a very high possibility of gap. Although the current situation could motivate the primary and level 2 mages to study magic harder and strive to reach the level of a level 3 mage as soon as possible and obtain the opportunity to work in a magic machine company, in Su Yi's opinion, this would undoubtedly waste a lot of time. Even if these primary and level 2 mages worked hard to become level 3 mages and join a magic machine company, they would still have to learn about magic machines from scratch and spend a lot of time and energy to master the relevant technology. Therefore, rather than letting them waste so much time and energy, it would be better to let them work hard in this direction from the start. In this proposal, submitted to the Magicians' Union headquarters, Su Yi proposed that the New Flyer and the Magicians' Union headquarters jointly set up a magic machine industry training class. This class would specifically provide training related to the magic machine industry for low-level mages who were willing to work in a magic machine company in the future. It would be convenient for them to have a certain amount of knowledge about the magic machine industry from the start, and when their strength reached a certain level, they would immediately be able to work in the magic machine industry. As a pilot, the first class would be set up in Anvilmar City by the cooperation of the New Flyer and the Lampari Kingdom Sorcerers Guild. The Lampari Kingdom Sorcerers Guild would be in charge of promoting this class, explaining it to the low-level mages in the Lampari Kingdom, and the New Flyer would provide the funds, venue, and training personnel. To put it simply, the Sorcerers Guild would provide support in name, and the New Flyer would provide practical support. When Su Yi proposed this solution, Sir Alex Ferguson did not agree at first, because he felt that this was the same as treating the noble mages as tools of the magic machine industry, represented by the Shinfei Chamber of Commerce. This went against the free spirit of the mages. However, after Su Yi explained through various data that this would save a lot of time and money for these low-level mages, Sir Alex Ferguson could only helplessly agree. This proposal would of course be studied and confirmed by the Magicians' Union headquarters, but before Sir Alex Ferguson left, he hinted that Su Yi could make preparations first. Therefore, Su Yi and President Aaron, who accompanied Sir Alex Ferguson, had a private discussion and then reached a verbal agreement in front of him. New Flyer would cooperate with the Lampari Kingdom's Sorcerers Guild to launch a magic machine industry seminar in the early spring of this year. In addition to inviting some mages working in the magic machine industry, represented by New Flyer, to give live speeches and demonstrations, they would also invite all the low-level mages in the Lampari Kingdom to participate in this seminar. This was actually a variant of the class that the bookseller had mentioned, but before the Magicians' Union headquarters approved it, the Lampari Kingdom Sorcerers Guild could not directly reach a specific long-term cooperation plan with New Flyer, so it was temporarily a compromise experiment. Sir Alex Ferguson said that if the results were good, it would be a strong evidence to convince the Union headquarters to agree to this proposal. So before leaving, he urged Su Yi and President Aaron to make good use of this opportunity. Sue E. and President Aaron naturally understood and deeply agreed. If this matter was successful, it would help the Lampari Kingdom Sorcerers Guild solve the problem of low-level mages, and for New Flyer, it would allow them to have a group of excellent mages as employees in the future, which was naturally what they wanted. However, after Sir Alex Ferguson left, President Aaron found Sue E. and said that he was not optimistic that this proposal would be approved by the Union headquarters. The members of the Union headquarters are a bunch of stubborn guys. Ferguson could be considered the most open-minded of them all, but you still spent so much time and energy to barely convince him. I think it's too difficult to count on the other members who have not seen the huge impact of the magic machine industry with their own eyes to understand this point. President Aaron had been the president of the Lampari Kingdom's Sorcerers Guild for dozens of years, so of course he knew the situation of the Magicians' Union headquarters better than Sue E., so his worries were not without reason. However, after Sue E. heard this, he did not look worried at all. Instead, he smiled and said, "It's not important whether this proposal can be approved or not. What's important is that the Magicians' Union headquarters is finally willing to face the magic machine industry as a new industry, and has already shown an attitude of approval. This is enough." Oh, President Aaron looked at Sue E. in surprise. "I didn't think that your goal was not big." "No, my goal is very big, but if I want to achieve this goal, I can't be too hasty because it's easy to fall if I'm too hasty. For me, whether it's the Marquis of Southguard's visit or Sir Alex Ferguson's arrival on behalf of the Magicians' Union headquarters, it's actually very significant. Because no matter which point it is, it means that our new flyer has taken an exceptionally important and solid step towards the entire continent. Chapter 8:15. A rainstorm had just passed. Although the air in the early summer still carried a trace of heat, it was much more humid than usual. Through the gaps in the open car windows, the wind blew on people's bodies, immediately making them feel that the summer heat had dissipated. It was extremely comfortable. Freeman let out a long sigh. He looked into the distance and signaled to the driver beside him to slow down a bit. "Our car is filled with intricate equipment. Be careful, don't get bumped. If one or two of these things are broken, we'll have to run back to the Principality of Constantine to buy more." The Ireland Chamber of Commerce's personal driver, Bobbick, nodded. He lowered the speed of the large transport magic car from close to 1 kilometer per hour to around 40 kilometers per hour, instantly slowing down quite a bit. However, Bobbick was much more focused compared to before, even looking a bit nervous like he was facing a great enemy. It wasn't just because Freeman reminded him that the back of the magic car was filled with high-precision production magic machines. It was also because the road in front of them was a bit messy. "I say, Chairman, this Malar Empire is one of the 2 empires of the continent. I always thought that they were incredible before, but now that I look at it, not mentioning anything else, not to mention our Lampari Kingdom, this road is even worse than the Frankish Kingdom." Freeman rolled his eyes. "Nonsense. The road we just passed is only the first road in the Malar Empire. How can it compare to our Lampari Kingdom that has roads all over the place?" "That's true." Bobbick laughed. Freeman laughed. "I never thought that our Lampari Kingdom is this much smaller than the Malar Empire, but our roads are much better than theirs." "That's enough. Look ahead. Don't waste any more words." Freeman interrupted him. Bobbick gave an unsound and used a bit more strength on the steering wheel. Punk. The large transport magic car the 2 of them were sitting in suddenly made a large sound. The entire car shook and the 2 of them were thrown out of their seats at the same time. Freeman's expression changed as he said in a sharp voice, "Go a bit slower." Bobbick quickly controlled the large transport magic car to slow down again until it reached a speed of 30 kilometers per hour. Only then did the transport magic car reach an acceptable level of stability. Hearing the banging sounds that came from behind, Bobbick asked with knitted brows, "Chairman, will there be a problem with the things behind?" Freeman's brows knit even tighter, clearly feeling more worried. But after thinking about it, he could only helplessly wave his hand. "There's no other way. Let's just leave it like this. Those magic cars are tied up. I think there shouldn't be a problem. If there's to it, We can only ask New Flyer for help. Speaking of this, how did the Frestec Chamber of Commerce transport all their production magic machines here? Bobak asked. Can it compare to the Frestec Chamber of Commerce? Freeman snappily glared at Bobak. Freeman gave an angry look. I've heard that when they transported the first batch of equipment to the Malar Empire, they directly used the magic airship. The magic airship is something that can fly in the sky. Of course, there's no need to worry about bumps on the road. Magic airship. Bobak looked at the sky in the distance with an envious look. Only New Flyer can be this extravagant. Chairman, when will our Ireland Chamber of Commerce also buy a few magic airships to play with? Freeman could only roll his eyes again. What a joke. A magic airship costs 1,300,000 gold coins, and our company only earns less than 500,000 gold coins a year. You want to buy a magic airship? That's simply wishful thinking. Bobak stuck out his tongue. I'm just saying. But, Chairman, even if you can't afford a magic airship, you should be able to afford a few New Flyer's newest air suspension transport magic cars, right? Freeman looked at Bobak in surprise with a curious and funny look on his face. Great. So, kid, you were beating around the bush all this time just to get me to change cars for you. Bobak laughed. When I went to the Fulcao Chamber of Commerce's mine a few days ago, I tried driving the new air suspension transport magic car they bought. Chairman, I have to say this thing really is too strong. I drove it on the bumpy roads of the mine for a while, and I didn't feel any bumps at all. Look, if we had this car now, we wouldn't need to worry about the magic machines breaking, right? Freeman looked at the muddy road in front of him that was filled with countless potholes. He knit his brows to think about it before he couldn't help giving a nod. What you said isn't completely unreasonable. We don't know when this broken road will be fixed, and we have to keep transporting things over. If there's a problem on the road, it would be very troublesome. That's right. So, Chairman, when we go back this time, we should buy 2 air suspension transport magic cars from the New Flyer. I dare say that if I drive that car, I dare run at least 50 miles on this road. Moreover, you don't need to worry about things breaking. Bobak struck while the iron was hot as he continued. Freeman waved his hand. All right, we'll talk about this when we get back. Let's transport the goods first. Bobak saw that he had achieved his goal, so he focused on driving with a smile. Although it was still bumpy, his mood was different, so he felt that the bumps weren't as unbearable as before. Freeman didn't pay any attention to Bobak, who was grinning from ear to ear. He lowered his head and took out a map to read. According to their plan, they should be able to rest in a small city 200 kilometers away tonight. They would arrive at their destination by noon tomorrow, the territory of the Marquis of Southgard in the Malar Empire. But with how bad the road was, the transport magic car couldn't help slowing down. Based on their current slow speed, it was absolutely impossible for them to reach the small city before nightfall. In this Malar Empire where there were no roads and no street lamps, it was impossible to continue traveling at night. So they had to decide where they would spend the night as soon as possible. Based on the map, there was a small town around 100 kilometers away. If nothing unexpected happened, they should be able to reach it before it was dark. So Freeman had set this small town as his goal for now. However, accidents always happened when people didn't expect it. 2 hours later, when a large transport magic car carrying Freeman and Bobak arrived at a muddy road, they suddenly found that there were around 7 to 8 transport magic cars in front of them. At the same time, there were quite a few people standing beside them, as well as the sounds of people talking could be heard. What is going on? Freeman and Bobak looked at each other in confusion as they drove closer. When they came closer, Freeman found that there was a rather wide river in front of them. These magic cars and people were all blocked on this side of the river, as if they couldn't pass. Freeman signaled for Bobak to stop the car and jumped down himself. After looking closer, Freeman found that the owners of these magic cars were as he expected. They were the same as him, responding to the call of the New Flyer, coming to the Malar Empire to invest in the company. The reason why they were stopped here was because the bridge that was supposed to be over the river had been directly washed away by the torrential water after the storm, causing them to lose the only passage through the river. How long have you been waiting here? Freeman asked. I came the earliest. I've been waiting for over an hour. A transport driver with a bitter look shook his head and said with a sigh, I thought that since the rain had stopped, perhaps the water would become smaller and we would be able to pass through. I never thought that after all this time, it wouldn't become smaller at all. Freeman looked at the others and found that they were all shaking their heads with sighs. Then you didn't think of taking a detour? Freeman asked. What detour? This is our first time in the Malar Empire, so we're not familiar with the place. Moreover, according to the map, the closest bridge to here is close to 100 kilometers away, and there isn't a road in between. Moreover, even if we find a way, we would have to take a detour of at least 300 kilometers. We might not even arrive the day after tomorrow. That's right. I really didn't know that the Malar Empire's roads were this bad. How could it be better than our Lampari kingdom? That's right. There are smooth roads all over our Lampari kingdom, and the bridges are the strongest. How could they be destroyed by water? Why do I feel that the Malar Empire is much more behind than our Lampari kingdom? Look, the roads are this bad, there aren't any street lamps, and there isn't a single magic car. There are only a few broken horse carriages. Hearing the complaints of the people around him, Freeman slightly knit his brows, but he didn't join in. He walked to the side of the river to look at the small stone bridge that had been destroyed and found that the situation wasn't that serious. There was only a part of the bridge that had been destroyed, and as long as this part was filled in, it wasn't that they couldn't pass. Turning back to look at the 8 large transport magic cars by the river, Freeman made some calculations in his heart before walking to the side of one of the drivers. Hey, if I'm not wrong, you should have a magic excavator in your car, right? That driver was stunned. That's right, what about it? Freeman gave a laugh and clapped his hands to attract everyone's attention. He raised his voice to say, It's impossible to wait here for the Malar Empire's people to fix the bridge, but we can't wait here. But we can't just wait here. Chairman Su is waiting for us to deliver the things and start work on time. Everyone looked at each other in blank dismay. But what can we do now? There's no way to pass. Did you forget what Chairman Su said before? He said that all the roads in this world depend on people. Now that the road in front of us is broken, we have to fix it. Fix it? How we fix it? Everyone was even more confused. Freeman pointed at the trunks of the large transport magic cars and said with a smile, Of course it's relying on these fellows. Chapter 816. Freeman was leading a group of people to think of a way to fix the bridge. 300 kilometers away in the Marquis of Southgard's territory, it was also bustling with activity. There were 17 large and small magic excavators working at the same time, digging out deep holes in the wasteland that the Marquis of Southgard had set aside for the magic machine industry base. Then they used magic forklifts to flatten the uneven areas, quickly turning this place into an easy-to-operate construction site. Chairman Cruz was standing at the construction site, watching the progress of the project with a focused look. Actually, for this kind of construction project, since the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce and the New Flyer started working together, the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce had done this countless times, so they were already familiar with it. Even if he, as the chairman, wasn't here, the 5 most experienced construction teams under him could definitely finish this beautifully, and there definitely wouldn't be any problems. However, Chairman Cruz still came and stayed at the construction site every day to supervise the work. Even when there was a storm, he didn't leave the construction site. He waited for the storm to pass with his workers and then immediately directed the construction to continue, showing how important this project was to him. Of course, this could be understood since this was the second large project the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce had in the Malar Empire other than the road from the southwest province to the Fa Kingdom. So naturally, they had to place importance on it. Moreover, this project was different from paving roads. It was helping the New Flyer and the other companies that came to the Malar Empire to invest in the New Flyer to build factories and worker residences. This was the old profession of the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce, construction. The Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce was naturally responsible for paving roads and had already received the approval of the Marquis of Southgard. Then in terms of construction, Chairman Cruz had to display the strong advantage of the Amra Chamber of Commerce, trying to enter the construction market of the Malar Empire. The Malar Empire was one of the 2 empires of the continent. Whether it was the size of its land or its population, it surpassed the Lampari kingdom and the surrounding countries by several times. There is no doubt that this was a large market that made people drool. If they could smoothly enter and control this market, the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce had hopes of becoming a first-class company on the continent. Thinking of this, Chairman Cruz felt a bit of gratitude towards Sue E. If it wasn't for Sue E finding a chance to cooperate with the Marquis of Southgard and bringing in the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce, it was unknown when the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce would be able to enter this market. Of course, the ones who needed to be most grateful to Sue E were the other companies that responded to the call of the New Flyer, especially the smaller magic machine companies. With the strength of the New Flyer, it was completely possible for them to take over all the industrial planning of the magic machine industrial base in the Marquis of Southgard's private territory. However, Sue E took the initiative to call for the other magic machine companies in the Lampari Kingdom and the Kingdom of Ruhr to invest in the Malar Empire. It could be said that he was giving them the meat in his bowl to eat. However, even so, there were still some companies who questioned New Flyer's move. They felt that New Flyer had no confidence in investing in the Malar Empire, so it needed to rope in other companies to share the risk. But this laughable question was immediately refuted by a large group of magic machine companies. Soon, there were over 100 magic machine companies that applied to New Flyer, hoping that they would respond to the call of the New Flyer. In the end, Sue E personally sent 23 representatives to the Marquis of Southgard's private territory to inspect it. Other than one company that withdrew, the remaining 22 companies all expressed their willingness to invest here. As for why that company withdrew, Chairman Cruz turned to look at the narrow dirt road that was hard to walk on after the storm to the southwest, and he couldn't help giving a sigh as he shook his head. In the Lampari Kingdom and the surrounding countries, they were already used to having flat roads everywhere. Suddenly coming to a place with such poor traffic, it really was hard to adapt. It was no wonder that company's representative didn't have confidence in this environment and announced their withdrawal. Thinking of this, Chairman Cruz thought for a bit before taking large steps with difficulty. He came to the side of a young man who was staring at a magic excavator. "Hey, Your Excellency Baron, there's something I want to discuss with you." The young man immediately turned around and said with a smile, "Chairman Cruz, I've said it many times. Please just call me Franklin." "Speak, what is it?" This young man was the Marquis of Southgard's eldest grandson, Franklin Southgate. He was only 19 this year, but he already had the title of Baron. He was chosen as the third-generation head of the Southgate family and had been carefully trained since he was young. This cooperation between the New Flyer and the Marquis of Southgard was very important. The Marquis of Southgard had contacted the representative of this cooperation, Sue E., before sending his most beloved grandson to be in charge of this project. Chairman Cruz had been with him for half a month, and after interacting with him many times, he knew that although this Baron Franklin was only 19, he was very careful in his actions. Moreover, there were many times when he could make decisions for the Marquis of Southgard, so he would come to discuss anything with him. "Look, this is just a single storm, and the surrounding roads are already ruined. It's hindering the progress of our project and will greatly affect the other companies coming in. So I feel that it's best to improve the condition of these roads first." Baron Franklin slightly knit his brows. "But Chairman Cruz, didn't you say that it would take quite a bit of time to pave a road to ensure its quality? Like this, it can't be done in a short period of time, right?" "No, of course it's impossible to build a road, but it can be done in a short period of time to improve the condition," Chairman Cruz said while shaking his head. "Oh, what do you need to do?" Chairman Cruz looked around, and his gaze fell on a few small mountains in the Marquis of Southgard's territory and asked, "If I'm not wrong, those mountains should be made of stone, right?" Baron Franklin swept his gaze over it and thought for a bit before nodding. "Yes, those mountains are made of stone. But what does that have to do with what you just said?" "It's fine as long as they're made of stone." Chairman Cruz laughed. "My idea is very simple. I just want to get some stones from those mountains. Then I'll put some sand around it. That way, the roads will be much sturdier. It will be much easier to walk on than it is now. Since we'll have to pave roads here in the future, We'll pave the roads first, and it won't be a waste. What do you think? Baron Franklin blinked in confusion. I don't know much about roads, but since Chairman Cruz said it like that, I think it shouldn't be a problem. But Chairman Cruz, those mountains are completely made of stone. How are you going to take stones from them? Hey, this matter isn't hard at all. There's so many magic machines here, not to mention a few small stone mountains. Even if they were a bit bigger, they would be flattened in just a few days. Baron Franklin looked at the small mountains in the distance that were at least 100 meters tall, and he couldn't help opening his eyes wide as he was secretly stunned. These were mountains made of stone. According to what he knew before, it would take over 1,000 people to flatten them and several months to flatten them. But now Chairman Cruz said that he could do it in just a few days. This was just too shocking. But in this half a month, Baron Franklin had personally witnessed the incredible abilities of the magic machines brought by the Omra Chamber of Commerce. His understanding of them had been refreshed countless times, so it wasn't as hard for him to accept them as it was in the beginning. After thinking for a while, Baron Franklin nodded in agreement. All right, this matter shouldn't be delayed. Chairman Cruz, you should arrange for people to do it as soon as possible. The weather isn't stable during this time, and it might rain again at any time. If we can solve this road problem as soon as possible, we can save quite a bit of effort. The matter of digging up these mountains, do we need to ask Sir Marquis for permission? Chairman Cruz asked in a hesitant voice. No need. Baron Franklin shook his head with a firm expression. Baron Franklin shook his head with a firm look. Grandfather has already given this matter to me. I believe in Chairman Cruz's judgment and decision, so you can be assured with your people. If you need any other support, please tell me as soon as possible. Chairman Cruz took a deep breath and looked over Baron Franklin with eyes filled with praise. Your Excellency, Baron, the Southgate family is very lucky to have such an outstanding successor like you. I feel that Sir Marquis is very proud of you. It's no wonder he sent you to manage this project. Baron Franklin revealed a faint smile. Chairman Cruz's praise is too much. Grandfather putting me in charge of this is also a kind of training for me. If there is anything I haven't done well, please don't be polite and point it out. Also, please directly call me by my name. Chairman Cruz laughed. All right, Franklin, Sir Marquis, and Chairman Sue attach great importance to this project, so my requests will be very high. There will be many things I need to trouble you with, so don't think that I'm too annoying when the time comes. Baron Franklin's lips split open, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. How could that be? Chapter 817. Freeman and his colleagues were working hard to repair the broken bridge in the river. Chairman Cruz and Franklin were working hard to smooth the road, trying to find a solution in the mud. However, the core characters of this cooperation, Sue, E, and the Marquis of Southgard, were currently sitting in a bright and spacious room. They were holding refreshing fruit drinks in their hands, tasting them while looking at the occasional raindrop outside the window, looking very relaxed. This was the private manor of the Southgate family. It was in the center of the Southgate family's territory. It was over 20 kilometers away from the Magic Machine industrial base that was currently being built. Sue E and the Marquis of Southgard sitting here wasn't as relaxed as they seemed on the surface. Rather, they were here to discuss a very important matter. The Marquis of Southgard wasn't the top noble of the Malar Empire, and the Southgate family wasn't the top family in the Malar Empire. The Marquis of Southgard had brought the new flyer and the other companies that had responded to Sue Yi's call to his territory, as well as building a Magic Machine industrial base. This had attracted the attention of countless people in the Malar Empire. People who were familiar with the Marquis of Southgard knew that this Sir Marquis liked to accept new things and would always do some strange things, but the things he did were always targeted and he never truly messed around. This was because many of the things he did before were considered messing around, but in the end, facts proved that he was right. So after a long time, no matter what he did, there would be many people who were willing to seriously analyze the meaning behind it. This time, the Marquis of Southgard had suddenly brought back an unknown small company from Small Duchy that was over 1,000 kilometers away from the Malar Empire. Moreover, He had announced that he wanted to cooperate with this company, creating an unknown magic machine industrial base in his territory, which had shocked everyone. Although, because of the Marquis of Southgard's past deeds, people didn't immediately ridicule him, but everyone still had a large amount of doubt in their hearts. This small company from a small duchy, what qualification did they have to cooperate with the respected Marquis of the Malor Empire? Normally speaking, they should be grateful to the Marquis of Southgard for a bit of attention, right? However, the attitude of the Marquis of Southgard made everyone even more confused. Whether it was in public or in private, the Marquis of Southgard had always praised this small company called New Flyer. He even said that this New Flyer could change the face of the Malor Empire, bringing a revolutionary change to the empire. This evaluation really was a bit shocking. Even the Marquis of Southgard's old friend, Duke Makuros, who trusted him, normally couldn't hide the doubt in his eyes when he saw Sui. Chairman Su, you said that using your New Flyer's agricultural magic machines, we can increase the efficiency of our fall harvest by several times and shorten the fall harvest to a single week. You wouldn't be joking, right? Duke Makuros knit his brows as he asked this with a look of doubt. Actually, if it wasn't for his old friend, the Marquis of Southgard, if this Sui dared to boast in front of him, he would have immediately chased him out. What a joke. The fall harvest was such an important matter, and this kid who seemed to be in his early 30s actually dared to say that he could solve it in a single week. This was simply insulting his intelligence. No, I'm serious. Sui revealed a faint smile. Sui revealed a faint smile. Actually, if we have enough agricultural magic machines and enough experienced people, I can even reduce the time to 3 days. 3 days? Duke Makaros's eyes opened wide as he revealed a look of disbelief. How is that possible? You can't even walk through all the wheat fields on my territory in 3 days, and you want to finish the harvest? Hey, Dalen, where did you find this kid to play with me? The Marquis of Southgard put down the cold fruit drink in his hand and said with a smile, Anyway, I've already made my decision. I'll give this year's fall harvest to the person who came with Chairman Su. The Cantona Chamber of Commerce. Sui reminded him. Oh, right, the Cantona Chamber of Commerce. I'll give it all to them. Their chairman Cantona promised me that in at most half a month, they'll be able to finish harvesting all the fields on my territory. Half a month? Didn't Chairman Su just say that it would only take a week? Duke Makuros said in a surprised voice. This is just Chairman Cantona's cautious estimate. Sui explained with a smile. Actually, according to our Principality of Constantine and the surrounding countries, a week is already considered long. Chairman Cantona gave half a month because, other than being unfamiliar with the environment, there is another important reason. After saying this, Sui paused with a bit of hesitation on his face. The Marquis of Southgard laughed and waved his hand. Chairman Sui, there isn't anything that can't be said. The reason you mentioned must be because the roads on my territory are too bad, right? Sui gave a helpless sigh. That's right. Sir Marquis, the roads on your territory are simply unbearable to me. If you want the agricultural magic machines to smoothly pass through and finish harvesting, I'm afraid you'll have to waste a lot of time. And I also know this, but there's no other way. Chairman Cruz has said that to finish the road network on my territory, it will take at least 2 to 3 years. Also, they have to build the road that connects to the Falk Kingdom first. Duke Makuros on the side was confused as he listened to their conversation. Hearing this, he couldn't help interrupting their conversation. Hey, Dalen, why do you care so much about this? Road? Is this thing that good? The Marquis of Southgard looked at him. The road from the southwest province to the Falk Kingdom is already over 100 kilometers long. Have you seen it? No. How could I have the free time? All right, you haven't seen it yourself, but that kid Seymour must have mentioned it to you when he went back, right? I don't believe that he didn't complain about how bad our Malor Empire's roads are after he came back. Don't mention that kid to me. Hearing the words Seymour, Duke Makaros's face filled with anger. After this kid came back, he kept complaining that it was inconvenient and that it was inconvenient. The thing he complained about the most was that the roads at home were too bad, so he couldn't drive his precious magic sedan around. Dalen, I'm beginning to regret letting him go out with you twice. Now his heart is wild, and he wants to leave home every day. The Marquis of Southgard broke out in laughter. You can't blame me for this. If you want to complain, why don't you complain about how Chairman Sue's Principality of Constantine is that good? To be honest, not only Seymour, even I can't adapt after coming back. Compared to when we were in the Principality of Constantine, the various places in our Malar Empire are just too inconvenient. Duke Makaros doubtfully looked at him before looking at Sue. Is the Principality of Constantine really as good as you say it is? It's just a duchy that can't even be found on a map. How can it compare to our Malar Empire? Philip, if you still have this kind of stubborn thoughts, you will soon be eliminated by this era. The Marquis of Southgard suddenly had a serious look as he pointed behind Duke Makaros. Not mentioning anything else, have you ever seen such a convenient thing before? Duke Makaros turned around and looked at the magic air conditioner on the wall, feeling the cool breeze coming from it. After being silent for a bit, he gave a slight nod. I never thought that there would be something like this in this world. Compared to the large-scale frost array, this magic air conditioner is not only cheaper, it is also more convenient. I have to admit, this is a good thing. You admit that the magic air conditioner is a good thing. Then what do you think about this magic refrigerator? The Marquis of Southgard stood up and opened the magic refrigerator behind him. He took out a bottle of chilled fruit juice and a bottle of red wine, placing them on the table. Looking at the cold air emitting from the wine bottle, Duke Makaros was silent for a moment before nodding his head. This is indeed a good thing. Let me tell you, there aren't just these two good things. I've been to the Principality of Constantine twice, and I've seen many good things in the New Flyer. Philip, I dare guarantee that if you personally see these things, you will be so shocked that you won't be able to close your mouth. The Marquis of Southgard raised his voice as he spoke. There's no need for you to say this. That kid Seymour has already mentioned this to me countless times. Duke Makaros turned to look at Sue. But the things you're talking about are different from the agricultural magic machines. I believe that the New Flyer can make these new things, but I doubt that the agricultural magic machines that Chairman Sue mentioned are as amazing as this. Being stared at by Duke Makaro's sharp eyes, Sue didn't look nervous at all. He said with a faint smile, Lord Duke, if you really don't believe me, I suggest that you wait for a bit. Wait for the autumn harvest on Sir Marquis territory to come out in a few months before you make your decision. Duke Makaros and the Marquis of Southgard were stunned. Chairman Sue, you want to give up? The Marquis of Southgard knit his brows. It was hard for me to convince Philip to meet you. How could you give up so easily? No, I just don't want to force people. Moreover, I have full confidence in the agricultural magic machines and the Cantona Chamber of Commerce. I believe that when the autumn harvest on Sir Marquis territory is over, the Lord Duke will definitely see the benefits of the agricultural magic machines. After pausing, Sue continued, But I have to remind you, Lord Duke, when that time comes, you definitely won't be the only one who can see this. Our company can only supply a limited amount of agricultural magic machines to the Malar Empire, so I'm afraid we won't be able to give them to you first. Duke Makaro's expression changed. Young man, are you threatening me? Sue revealed a faint smile. No, I'm just stating facts. Chapter 8:18. Duke Makaros didn't make his decision in the end. But even if he didn't buy the agricultural magic machines, it didn't stop him from preparing to buy some household magic machines. After all, after coming to the Marquis of Southgard's manor and personally seeing the amazing effects of the household magic machines that Sue brought, no matter how stubborn he was, he had to admit that these things were very easy to use. Since spending a bit of money could bring this much convenience to his life, why wouldn't he do it? Of course, this so-called a bit of money was only for Duke Makaros. Actually, he had bought 7 sets of household magic machines from the Frestec Chamber of Commerce, spending a total of 3,600 gold coins. For the citizens of the Malar Empire, This was a large amount of money that they would never be able to earn in their entire lives. After Duke Macaros left, Sue suddenly asked the Marquis of Southgard, "Sir Marquis, can I ask what the average yearly income of the citizens of your territory is?" "Why are you asking this question?" The Marquis of Southgard was a bit surprised. "I just want to use this to estimate the general consumption level of your territory." The Marquis of Southgard looked at Sue with a strange look. "Chairman Sue, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. To be honest, although the citizens of my territory are considered quite good in the Empire, compared to the people under your Frestec Chamber of Commerce, they are far from being able to compare. I'm ashamed to say this, but as their lord, I can only barely guarantee that they can live a normal life, but I can't truly improve their lives." Sue shook his head with a faint smile. "Sir Marquis, this isn't your fault. Not to mention that you brought our new flyer here, so you will definitely be able to give them a better life." "Definitely?" The Marquis of Southgard took a deep look at Sue. "Chairman Sue, you sure are confident." "Of course. If I didn't even have this bit of confidence, I wouldn't have come at all, right?" Sue smiled and continued to ask, "Sir Marquis, if I know the average income of the people in your territory, it will be of great help to my future plans. Please tell me." "Really?" The Marquis of Southgard frowned and thought for a moment. He sighed and shook his head. "Actually, your question is really hard to answer. As I said earlier, the people in the fief are barely able to survive every year. If you want to talk about income, they actually don't have any income at all. If that's the case, then I think I know what to do." Sue nodded. Suddenly, he looked straight at the Marquis of Southgard and said seriously, "Sir Marquis, now we could discuss the issue of the employees in the magic machine industrial base. The people in our fief must be the main force. There is no room for discussion." The Marquis of Southgard replied without hesitation, "Of course, this is what we have agreed on before. I have no intention of changing it. What I want to discuss now is the salary given to the employees. How do you plan to deal with it, Sir Marquis?" The Marquis of Southgard was stunned. "What do you mean?" "What I mean is, as the Lord, you have the right to order the people under your name to work in the factories. It is the same as if they are farming in your fief. Then, our company doesn't need to pay them extra. We only need to pay you, the Lord, to hire them. What do you think?" Sue said. Marquis Southgate knit his brows in thought before asking back, "Chairman Sue, I remember that whether it is the employees of your Frestec Chamber of Commerce or the other magic interest rate companies, their wages are all paid by their companies, right?" "Yes. But before this, there were still many magic machine companies that were set up by the nobles of various countries. They then ordered the people in their fief to work in the factories. This way, they didn't have to pay the employees. Then why are there no more?" "Because these companies have all been eliminated," Sue replied with a smile. Sue shook his head. "Facts have proven that this model is very hard to arouse the enthusiasm of the employees, causing the quality and performance of the magic machines to be lacking. So in the end, our Frestec Chamber of Commerce and the other magic machine companies have eliminated this industry." Enthusiasm for work. The Marquis of Southgard rubbed his chin and thought for a moment before nodding. "I understand what you mean. Chairman Sue, if I let the people under my name enter these factories as individuals, what would you do?" "That's very simple. Just treat them like we do in the Lampari Kingdom and the Principality of Constantine. Treat them as our ordinary employees, give them a corresponding salary, and provide them with some necessary benefits. But, speaking of this," Sue paused, "if they accept our employment in this way, then they should be considered as workers under our companies. As long as the management rights are in the hands of our companies, even if you are their lord, you can't directly interfere with them. If there is anything, you have to get the agreement of our companies first." Looking at the serious expression on Sue Yi's face, the Marquis of Southgard frowned deeply. Sue Yi's words were quite straightforward. What he meant was that if they followed Sue Yi's plan, then the employees in the factories would belong to New Flyer and the other companies. The Marquis of Southgard couldn't interfere most of the time. In short, Sue Yi was fighting for a certain degree of dominance for the New Flyer and the other companies that invested here. And if the Marquis of Southgard didn't agree, Sue Yi also gave the consequences. That was, the enthusiasm of the employees might be affected, which would affect the work efficiency and the quality of the magic machines produced. Under Su Yi's gaze, the Marquis of Southgard pondered for a long time before slowly shaking his head. Chairman Su, I'm afraid I can't agree to your request. The management of the people in the territory is my responsibility as the Lord. At the same time, I also have the responsibility to guide them. So no matter what, I can't let others manage my people. Su Yi's expression didn't change, but he sighed deeply in his heart. He was very disappointed with this answer. He originally thought that the Marquis of Southgard was very open-minded, so it was very likely that he would be more open-minded in this matter. But he didn't expect that in the end. He was like most of the nobles in this world and was unwilling to give up control of everything in his territory. Of course, Su Yi wasn't surprised by this answer. During the development of New Flyer over the years, Su Yi had come into contact with many nobles and deeply understood the thoughts of the nobles on this continent. He knew that they wouldn't easily change their minds unless they received tangible benefits. This was something that the Frestec Chamber of Commerce had led in developing the magic machine industry over the years. There were some changes in the Lampuri Kingdom and the surrounding countries, but for the large nobles of one of the two empires of the continent, like the Marlow Empire, it wasn't easy to change this. Su Yi pondered for a moment before replying. If that's your choice, Lord Marquis, then it's fine. Our New Flyer and the other chambers of commerce can directly hire people from your hands in the future. The commission will also be directly handed to you, and you won't have to sign a private employment contract with the hired workers. What do you think? The Marquis of Southgard nodded lightly. Yes, that's fine. But there's no need for commissions. You just need to guarantee the living standards of these people. Anyway, your factories still have to pay taxes to me, right? Su Yi revealed a faint smile. He thought that perhaps the Marquis of Southgard didn't want commissions because he had rejected his suggestion, but this didn't conform to Su Yi's plan. No, Lord Marquis, taxes were taxes, and commissions were commissions. They cannot be mixed together. You've already reduced taxes by building a factory on your territory, so if you take away the commission, you'll be suffering a loss. The Marquis of Southgard laughed. It's fine even if I suffer a loss. The most important thing is that you can cooperate with me and improve the environment of my territory. If you can build this place like Banta City or even your Frestec Chamber of Commerce's headquarters, it doesn't matter if I exempt you from taxes. You can't joke about this, Lord Marquis. If I take this seriously, you will definitely regret your losses each year, Su Yi said with a smile. In short, from the perspective of a merchant, any transaction or cooperation should be built on a fair basis. Otherwise, this transaction or cooperation can't last long. In order for us to have a long-term cooperation in the future, it's best to make a fair agreement from the beginning, don't you think? The Marquis of Southgard shook his head with a bitter smile. All right, since Chairman Su insists, then I'll take some commissions. This is my first time doing this, so I really don't know what price to give. Chairman Su, you can tell me what price you want. It's fine as long as you give me a decent price. All right, for each employee each year. Su Yi raised 3 fingers. 30 gold coins, what do you think? The Marquis of Southgard had gone to the New Flyer twice and had been there for close to a month, so he was very clear that the lowest salary the New Flyer gave their employees was over 100 gold coins a year. Compared to this, 30 gold coins a year was clearly much worse. But the two of them had already made it clear that the New Flyer and the other companies were only hiring people from the Marquis of Southgard, so they couldn't manage these employees. Naturally, it was much worse than hiring them privately. Although this difference was a bit large, it was still reasonable. The Marquis of Southgard thought for a bit before agreeing with a nod. All right, it'll be this price. But there's still a problem. Chairman Su, according to your estimates, how many people do you need to hire? Su Yi revealed a sly smile before raising a single finger. Not much. We only need around 10,000 people in the beginning. 10,000 people. The Marquis of Southgard stared at Su Yi with his eyes wide open. He was so shocked that he couldn't speak for a long time. Chapter 819. The Malar Empire was very big. As one of the two empires of the Sines continent, the Marlow Empire's territory was several dozen times bigger than a small country like the Lampuri Kingdom on the continent's map. As for the Principality of Constantine, which was several times smaller than the Lampari Kingdom, it could not be compared to the Malar Empire. Although Sui was unable to obtain an accurate figure, based on his experience living in the Lampari Kingdom, the size of the Lampari Kingdom was roughly the size of a medium-sized province in the Celestial Empire on Earth. Based on this calculation, the size of the Malar Empire could be compared to the total size of the Celestial Empire on Earth. It could definitely be called a huge empire. However, what Sui didn't expect was that in this large empire, the population wasn't several dozen times the size of the Lampuri kingdoms. According to the general data provided by the Marquis of Southgard, the total population of the Malar Empire was only about 50 million, which was only 10 times the total population of the Lampari Kingdom. Even if both sides could not accurately calculate the population, the difference would not be too big. With such a large territory having only 50 million people, it caused the population density in the Malar Empire to be extremely low. This made Sui, who came from the Celestial Empire on Earth, very uncomfortable. Take the Marquis of Southgard's private territory as an example. If he was in the Lampari Kingdom, then with his identity as the Marquis, he could obtain a fief of around 50 square kilometers. However, in the Malar Empire, his private territory was actually more than 1,000 square kilometers. It was comparable to a slightly smaller city in Sui's impression on Earth. However, in such a large private territory, according to the statistics of the Marquis of Southgard 2 years ago, the total population was only less than 30,000 people. If these 30,000 people were to be divided evenly, each person could occupy a large area of several hectares. However, this brought about a problem in his eyes, not mentioning the relatives and guards of the Southgate family, as well as the servants of the manor. Of the remaining 27,000 people, there were some old people and children who couldn't work at all, so there were only 15,000 people left in the labor force. Among these 15,000 or so laborers, there were 8,000 plus women whose labor force was much lower. Thus, there were less than 7,000 young and able-bodied laborers. These 7,000 people were the main labor force of the Marquis of Southgard's territory. They could even be considered the core strength of the entire Southgate family. Now that Sui had requested 10,000 men from the Marquis of Southgard, he was naturally shocked. Not to mention the fact that it was impossible for him to give all 7,000 people to Sui's group. Even if he gave them all, there was still a lack of 3,000 people. Chairman Sui, if I remember correctly, you only planned to build 17 factories in the beginning, so why do you need 10,000 people? The Marquis of Southgard asked in a confused voice. Is it a lot? Sui looked at the Marquis of Southgard, who was overreacting in surprise. After thinking about it, he understood. He was already used to talking to the people of the Lampari Kingdom and the surrounding countries about the magic machine industry, so these things were already common knowledge in those countries. But for the Malar Empire and the Marquis of Southgard, it was still common knowledge. Thinking of this, Sui thought of when he was expanding the new flyer in Banta City and asked the Banta City Lord Samo Count to hire at least 3,000 workers. When the Samo Count heard his request, he was just as surprised as the Marquis of Southgard in front of him. But after Sui explained it to him, the Samo Count was very happy and supported Sui's idea. Because like this, he would be helping Banta City solve the problem of 3,000 people, which was equal to helping him as the city lord. Although the Marquis of Southgard in front of him was a bit surprised and confused, he definitely wouldn't reject this chance. Then, after hearing Sui's explanation about the large amount of labor needed for these factories, the Marquis of Southgard knit his brows to think before shaking his head. Chairman Sui, I'm afraid I can't solve this. The most important thing for the laborers in the territory is farming. So if you can't guarantee the most basic grain production, everything else is meaningless. The 10,000 people in my territory can only be barely maintained, but I can't open up all the farmland in my territory. If I give you another 10,000 people, even those women you mentioned, I still can't accept it." So he was a bit confused. The Marquis of Southgard had clearly gone to the Lampari kingdom and the Principality of Constantine to investigate. Could it be that he didn't know that with the help of the agricultural magic machines, they didn't need that many people to farm? After asking this question to the Marquis of Southgard, he received an awkward response. I only cared about the influence of the household magic machines and infrastructure. I didn't pay that much attention to the agricultural magic machines. If it wasn't for you suggesting having the Cantona Chamber of Commerce help with the harvest, I wouldn't have known about the agricultural magic machines at all." So he could only roll his eyes. Although the Marquis of Southgard had mentioned buying some agricultural magic machines before, he never thought that he didn't understand the uses of the agricultural magic machines at all. He could only patiently explain to the Marquis of Southgard that because of the appearance of the agricultural magic machines, it had a large effect on the farmland of the Lampari kingdom and the surrounding countries. After hearing this, the Marquis of Southgard revealed a look of excitement. "It can actually be like this. No wonder you said that the Cantona Chamber of Commerce could solve all the farming problems in my territory. I thought that you were joking before." Sir resisted the urge to roll his eyes again and continued. "So, Sir Marquis, when it comes to farming, you don't need to worry about manpower at all. This year's fall harvest was too tight, so they could only help you with the harvest. But when the fall harvest is over, you can ask the Cantona Chamber of Commerce to reclaim all the farmland in your territory, and you can even ask them to help you sow seeds. You just need to have people do some maintenance during this time, and you can easily harvest next year." The Marquis of Southgard thought about it before saying with knit brows, "But the Cantona Chamber of Commerce can't stay here forever. The Cantona Chamber of Commerce has also established a branch in the Malar Empire. As long as you're willing, you could directly contact them when you need to sow seeds. Of course, if you want to do this work yourself, it's very simple. You just need to buy enough agricultural magic machines from our company and send some people to learn how to use them, so you can solve the problem yourself." So he patiently said, "The Cantona Chamber of Commerce is willing to teach this skill?" The Marquis of Southgard doubtfully looked at Sir. He couldn't help smiling. This wasn't a rare skill, so what was there to teach? But thinking about it, Sir had an idea and said with a smile, "You can directly discuss this with Chairman Cantona. I think that he will be very willing to talk to you." "All right, let's do this." The Marquis of Southgard nodded before knitting his brows again. "But even like this, it still can't fill up the manpower you need. The gap is just too big. You can ask Duke Macaros to cooperate with you. If you really can't, you can ask the other nobles of the empire for help. 30 gold coins per employee each year. I think that it should be enough to move many lords like you." Sir suggested. Actually, with Suy's thoughts, he naturally hoped that all the companies would openly recruit people from all over the Malar Empire. That way, it would be much more flexible and the new flyer and the other companies would have more initiative. But now that they had just arrived, they were relying on their relationship with the Marquis of Southgard, so they had to solve this through the Marquis of Southgard. After hearing Suy's suggestion, the Marquis of Southgard fell into deep thought. His expression was uncertain, and he looked a bit hesitant. Sir could understand his hesitation, because this was like giving up a piece of meat that was already in his mouth. No one would be willing to do this. After a while, the Marquis of Southgard took a deep breath, and his expression became firm, as if he had made his decision. "Chairman Sir, you don't need to worry about this matter. I will take care of it." The Marquis of Southgard didn't mention his method, so Sir couldn't help feeling a bit worried. However, in this situation, it wasn't good for him to show that he didn't trust the Marquis of Southgard, so he could only nod to show that he understood. After the two discussed their plans for the future, Sir said that he was going to the magic machine industry base to take a look before leaving the Marquis of Southgard's private manor. After driving the magic sedan out of the manor, Sir looked at the large manor behind him and gave a deep sigh. Before coming to the Malar Empire, he thought that the Marquis of Southgard had always been very open, so the matter of investing here would be very smooth. However, after coming here, he found that no matter how open the Marquis of Southgard was, No matter how willing he was to accept new things, he still had the same problems and limitations as the nobles of this era. Because of these problems and limitations, he had been forced to change many of his plans over the past few days, working hard to cooperate with the Marquis of Southgard. Although it didn't affect the most basic plan, he felt very helpless. In the small countries like the Principality of Constantine and the Lampari Kingdom, with the influence of the new flyer, it would be much easier for to change them. But if he wanted to change a giant like the Malar Empire, it would be hard from the beginning. There's no other way. This is a path that has to be taken. He gave a bitter laugh. Although the new flyer had taken a firm step onto the continent by entering the Malar Empire, if they wanted to smoothly walk down this path, they needed to work even harder. Thinking of this, turned to the south. Now that the new flyer had taken a step into the Malar Empire, when would they be able to take another step into the giant empire, the Quintona Empire? Chapter 820. At noon in early summer, the weather was a bit hot, making people feel so lazy that they didn't want to move. At this time, if they could peacefully stay at home and take an afternoon nap with the cool breeze from the magic air conditioner, that would be the most satisfying thing for many people. However, Belil couldn't take advantage of this time to be lazy like usual. To current him, other than being under the scorching hot sun, he also had to endure the loud roars of the magic sedans in front of him, which definitely couldn't be considered enjoyable. Damn, that bastard why did he have to make this sound system? It's simply too noisy. Hearing these magic sedans making even louder sounds like they were competing, Belil couldn't help cursing in his heart. Although the fire magic sedan's engine was much louder than the wind magic sedans, it wasn't to this degree. But this fellow he wanted to distinguish it from the normal magic sedans and the magic race cars. So he deliberately added this so-called racing sound system to the new magic race cars. This thing actually didn't have any use. It just made the magic race car's engine louder than the normal magic sedan's engine. Of course, Belil had to admit that after adding this racing sound system, it did make people's blood boil and filled with excitement. It was very suitable for the excitement of driving a magic race car. So since New Flyer withdrew from this new system, even if the price of the Xinfei brand magic race car was double that of the normal magic sedan, it was still welcomed by countless young nobles who loved racing cars. Just in Wimbledon City, based on what Belil knew, since New Flyer had released this new magic race car with a racing sound system, his magic car dealership in Wimbledon City had already sold 273 units. This number didn't seem like much, but if it was combined with the average price of 3,800 gold coins per magic car, it meant that in just 3 months, the Belil Magic Car Company had earned a shocking 1,030,000 gold coins in sales just by relying on the magic cars. According to the contract Belil signed with the new flyer, for each magic car sold, he would receive 5% of the profits. This meant that in these 3 months, just from selling magic cars, he had earned a large profit of over 50,000 gold coins. So even if he was very tired, Belil still maintained a high level of enthusiasm. He actively organized this magic race car that was quite famous among the nobles of Wimbledon City. Today's competition had been scheduled half a month ago, and the participants were all experts selected from a series of racing competitions organized by Belil. It was considered an elite competition, so apart from the 13 elite participants, it also attracted a large number of young nobles and merchants who were interested in the competition. Hey brothers, are you ready? Belil raised his arm and shouted. The crowd on both sides of the track broke out in a deafening cheer, and the 13 magic cars that had been prepared began to roar in response. Very good. Then everyone, enjoy this race. Belil angrily roared out. He turned to nod at the beauty in charge of announcing the start of the race before moving to the side. After a while, the beauty waved the flag in her hand, and the 13 magic sedans flew off like arrows, disappearing around the corner of the track in the blink of an eye. Belil looked at the corner in the distance before looking down at the track that couldn't be considered flat. He stomped down with his foot and slightly knit his brows. This racetrack was built in the private territory of a small noble in Wimbledon City. It was close to 100 kilometers away from Wimbledon City, so it wasn't a very suitable place. But the nobles of Wimbledon City didn't have a high acceptance of racing, so most of them were young nobles and descendants of merchants. These people had money, but they didn't have the right to speak, so they couldn't decide too many things. Being able to find this open space and secretly pull in the construction team of the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce to build this road was already the limit of what these people could do right now. They were still far from the goal that Sue had Belil of spreading the magic cars throughout the Canla Empire. When Belil took this task from Sue at first, he was just trying it out. After coming to the Canla Empire for a year, he had already built a solid foundation here and had gained a large amount of benefits. He had already secretly decided in his heart that this would become his real career. Moreover, based on his observations of the nobles in Wimbledon City, he was certain that the magic race car, the magic sedan, and even the magic car had great potential in the Canla Empire, with limitless prospects. If he could really do it well and spread this race, he would definitely become a powerful and influential person in the future. No matter what, it would be much better than staying in the Lampari Kingdom as a small noble. Perhaps I should find some time to meet with His Highness Frank. Belil thought in his heart as he returned to the shadows by the track. After a while, the 13 magic race cars had finished a lap around the track and returned to the starting point, flying past Belil. Seeing that the drivers of the 13 magic race cars were still leisurely waving to the spectators on both sides of the track, even throwing out kisses, Belil curled his lips with a bit of disdain in his smile. In the Lampari Kingdom and the Principality of Constantine, he had seen many magic race cars organized by the new flyer. Compared to them, these fellows in front of him were just amateurs. Not to mention that they couldn't compare to the super drivers like Teacher Carmilla and Elder Lysania, who surpassed the understanding of mortals. They couldn't compare to the drivers of the beastmen, elves, and dwarves. They couldn't even compare to the human drivers in the new Flyers race. Being able to wave to the spectators like this, it definitely wouldn't appear in a race organized by the new Flyer. Of course, this race had just started, so it was normal that it couldn't compare to the Shinfei race car that had close to 3 years of history. The first batch of magic race cars sped by and raised a cloud of dust, causing Belil to move back into the shadows behind him. Just as he took 2 steps back, he suddenly felt a hand patting his shoulder twice. Belil turned around in surprise, as a pleasantly surprised look appeared on his face. "Manager Lons, why are you here?" With a serious face, whether it was his clothes or his expression, he looked like a butler. Actually, he was indeed a butler. Lons made a shushing gesture to Belil, indicating for him to follow him. Belil understood and gave some instructions to his subordinates. He followed behind Lons and quietly left the edge of the track. They came to the side of the track, some distance away from the track, but because of the higher ground, it was easier to see the overall situation of the track on high platform. "Your Highness Frank, why are you free today?" Since he had already seen Prince Frank's most trusted butler Lons, it wasn't unexpected for Belil to see Prince Frank here. However, he was still very surprised that Prince Frank would suddenly appear here today. He had sent countless invitations to Prince Frank in the past, but he had never received a response. He had only sent out invitations as usual and didn't expect him to come, but he never thought that he would really come. "Hey, my dear Belil, it's been a while since we last met. I noticed that you're a lot darker than the last time I saw you." Prince Frank gave Belil a friendly smile as he sized him up. Belil gave a friendly look to Belil. "Could it be that because I've been organizing the competition these past few days, I've been tanned by the sun?" Belil laughed. He first gave a bow to Prince Frank before sitting down beside him without any courtesy, wiping the sweat off his forehead. I've been worried about this competition these past few days, so I've been quite busy." Prince Frank looked at the first batch of magic race cars on the other side of the track and said with a smile, "Actually, don't you think that this kind of competition is very boring?" Belil was surprised. "Why do you say this?" Prince Frank shook his head and revealed a look of disdain. "What's the point of competing in this kind of closed track? Compared to this, I prefer to race on the wider roads outside. Not only is it wider, there are more changes on the roads, so it's more interesting to race. Balil revealed a bitter smile. You don't need to say this, I know that. But these magic race cars can't run on those broken dirt roads, and there's no place for them to run. After saying this, Balil gave a sigh. Speaking of this, Frank, how long will it take to finish the roads in the Southwest province? It's already been a year, and it's still not finished? This is something that the Southwest province's Governor Manor cares about. I don't care about it. Prince Frank softly replied. I also know this, but Balil opened his mouth and wanted to say something. After pausing, he waved his hand and gave a bitter laugh. Forget it. There's no use in saying this now. No, there's a use. Prince Frank suddenly revealed a faint smile. He turned to look at Balil and asked with a serious look, Balil, tell me, if I can turn all the roads on my territory into roads, wouldn't these fellows have more space to run on? Balil's eyes opened wide as he looked at Prince Frank with a surprised look. Could it be? Prince Frank was finally moved by this. Chapter 821. Freeman and the other company representatives who were late because of the storm that broke the bridge and destroyed the road arrived at the Marquis of Southgard's territory. Sue met with everyone and talked to them for a bit before returning to the Principality of Constantine. Although he didn't achieve all his goals in the Malar Empire, not only did he reach many agreements with the Marquis of Southgard, he also made contact with some high-level people of the Malar Empire through the Marquis of Southgard, reaching some agreements. Although the Marquis of Southgard's old friend Duke Makaros was still doubtful about the agricultural magic machines in the new flyer, before Sui left, he had suddenly sent someone over. He told Sui that he could give a third of the farmland on his territory to the Cantona Chamber of Commerce during the fall harvest. He wanted to use this as an experiment to see if the amazing agricultural magic machines that Sui mentioned could really achieve this amazing effect. Other than the stubborn Duke Makaros, the other nobles of the Malar Empire that the Marquis of Southgard introduced were all willing to give it a try. So in just this fall harvest, the Cantona Chamber of Commerce had received the task of harvesting over 300,000 hectares of farmland from the Malar Empire, which could be considered a large business deal. Moreover, these nobles had promised that if the Cantona Chamber of Commerce really showed the amazing and incredible harvesting efficiency that Sui mentioned, they would seriously consider giving the Cantona Chamber of Commerce the responsibility of replanting the fields. Compared to harvesting, this was truly a large business deal. As the chairman, Cantona attached great importance to this chance to enter the Malar Empire's agricultural market. He stayed on the Marquis of Southgard's territory almost all day, leading his subordinates to carefully inspect the farmland on his territory. He had to give him a perfect answer during the fall harvest. For this, Cantona found Sui, hoping that the new flyer could provide the Cantona Chamber of Commerce with agricultural magic machines and construction magic machines, ensuring that the Cantona Chamber of Commerce could smoothly complete this task. Sui, of course, strongly supported this. Through his negotiations, the Drake Duchy gave up a part of the agricultural magic machine ordered to the Cantona Chamber of Commerce. Accordingly, the Cantona Chamber of Commerce had to pay the price of helping the Drake Duchy reconstruct their farmland in the next 2 years. Of course, the negotiations between the two sides weren't related to Sui. What he needed to do first was to return to the new flight commerce main base in the Principality of Constantine, preparing for the large demand that the Malar Empire was about to receive. The production capacity of the new flyer had always been a large problem for Sui. Even if Sanchali's research on the automatic production magic machines was progressing, greatly increasing the automation of the new flyer factories, there were many restrictions on the increase in production capacity. It couldn't be increased to a level that satisfied Sui. Among these restrictions, the most important was the problem of manpower. The problem of manpower wasn't just a simple lack of manpower. The decisive factor was the lack of technicians. It should be said that after the new flyer promoted the concept of magic machine training, there were more and more people who could operate the production magic machines, so this problem wasn't that serious. But in terms of magicians, it was very hard for the new flyer to solve this real problem. The Shinfei Chamber of Commerce didn't just need normal magicians. They had to have a certain understanding of magic machines. They had to know the requirements of the magic arrays that each magic machine needed, and they had to be professional magicians who could set up the magic arrays. In the early days of the new flyer, the requirements weren't that high. After all, if there were magicians willing to work for the new flyer, He was already very satisfied. So how could he dare be picky? But as the new flyer's development became better, He placed more importance on the development of the magic machine industry. He began to have high requirements for the various magic machines that the new flyer made, so it wasn't enough to satisfy Su Yi's needs like before. Moreover, as the new flyer kept instilling the concept of magic machine standardization into the other magic machine companies, the new flyer had to strictly follow this standard when making their own magic machines. Like this, there were even stricter requirements for the low-grade magicians in charge of setting up the magic arrays. Last time Sir Alex Ferguson brought 50 magicians to the new flyer to solve their livelihood problem. But He had clearly stated that these magicians couldn't meet the requirements of the new flyer, and the reason was this. If they didn't receive the corresponding training and work experience, there wasn't a single magician that could easily do the work of the new flyer. So even if the new flyer had a strong reputation and influence in the surrounding countries, making the magicians of the surrounding countries, especially the low-grade magicians, not only did they no longer resist working for the new flyer, they even rushed to work for the new flyer. However, the new flyer was very picky and strictly screened the magicians that wanted to work for the new flyer. As a result, even though the new flyer had always wanted to expand its production and increase its capacity, it had been very difficult for it to do so due to the limitations of the magicians. So when Sir Alex Ferguson suddenly came to the door on behalf of the Magicians' Union headquarters and proposed to work with the new flyer, even if he had some misgivings in his heart, he still had great expectations. He hoped that the cooperation with the Magicians' Union headquarters could truly solve this problem. In the few months that Sir Alex Ferguson had left, the Lampari Kingdom Sorcerers Guild organized a magic machine industry conference smoothly held. In the beginning, it was only held once every half a month, but because it was unexpectedly popular with most of the low-grade magicians in the Lampari Kingdom, the frequency of the conference gradually increased. Now, it was held once every week, and a total of 11 conferences have been held so far. In the conferences, the new flyer sent out many of the magicians that worked for the new flyer to speak and explain their work in the new flyer in detail to the other low-grade magicians who participated in the conferences. This allowed the low-grade magicians to have a deeper understanding and concept of the magic machine industry. After 11 conferences were held, countless low-grade magicians became more interested in participating in the magic machine industry under the influence of the magician lecturers sent by the new flyer. However, they were different from before when they had no clue. Now, after 11 conferences, they had a clear understanding of the industry in their hearts. Just like the conclusion given by the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce, the magic machine industry was an incomparably large system. There were countless types of research and practical work that required a large number of magicians to do. They didn't need to be proficient in everything. They only needed to focus on one aspect like magic to meet the requirements of being qualified. Therefore, when a new flyer announced that it would be opening a magic machine industry college in the Principality of Constantine to teach the knowledge related to the magic machine industry, in just half a month, there were more than 2,000 beginner and second-rank magicians who came to sign up. Even some third-rank and higher magicians expressed their willingness to enter the college to further their knowledge related to the magic machine industry. This made the college immediately become the focus of attention of all the low-grade magicians in the nearby countries. Moreover, the new flyer also gave special preferential treatment to this magic machine industry college. As long as one was willing to sign an agreement with the new flyer, promising that once one was willing to work for a chamber of commerce related to the magic machine industry, they would have priority in choosing the new flyer, and they would be able to enjoy free tuition. If one was willing to accept some of the conditions, They could even enjoy free living expenses. These two conditions were undoubtedly infinitely attractive to the low-grade magicians who were not in good financial situations. Therefore, even if a few newspapers criticized the new flyers' actions as a naked attack of money and an insult to the noble magicians, there were still countless low-grade magicians who chose to accept the new flyers' conditions without hesitation. When Sui returned from the Malur Empire, he received a report that the number of low-grade magicians who were willing to sign the agreement to give the new flyer priority employment rights had already reached 1316. Moreover, more than half of them, more than 700, were willing to accept the harsher conditions proposed by the new flyer. At the same time, there were also large numbers of low-grade magicians from the Lampari Kingdom and the surrounding countries who came to sign up for the Shinfei Magic Machine Industry College. If nothing unexpected happened, these two numbers would continue to increase. This situation was not out of Su Yi's expectations. After all, the magicians in the surrounding countries had long been used to the existence of the magic machine industry, and were not as opposed to it as they were in the beginning. Furthermore, the new flyer had offered such excellent conditions that the low-grade magicians who had no financial foundation or other support had no possibility of rejecting. Sui did not expect these low-grade magicians to grow into talents in the magic machine industry who were qualified to work for the new flyer, but he believed that with the large number of people, he could at least pick out a few suitable people. Most importantly, through this action, the magicians in the surrounding countries would form a concept that studying magic and becoming a powerful magician would no longer be their only way out. Not every magician had the talent to become a great magician or even an archmage. Therefore, other than focusing on the study of magic, they could choose to devote themselves to the magic machine industry. This was something that Sui hoped that the Magicians' Union headquarters could understand. Sir Alex Ferguson was slightly startled. He was talking about the cooperation between the guild and the new flyer. Why did the president suddenly change the topic to Minter Carmilla's opinion? Minter Carmilla did not express her opinion, but Sir Alex Ferguson recalled the situation when he met with Minter Carmilla and replied, Minter Carmilla is very supportive of Sui. He gives me the feeling that he is very satisfied with his work in New Flyer and is very committed. That is because Sui is his grandson-in-law, right? One of the elders laughed. No, that is not the case. Sir Alex Ferguson slowly shook his head. I could see that Minter Carmilla likes his current job and is very passionate about it. The other elders and counselors looked at each other in dismay, and they did not dare to believe it. That was a magus. As a magus that stood at the peak of the continent's magician world, he was actually this invested in something as small as magic machines. This was too inconceivable. Then with regards to Sui's proposal, has Minter Carmilla expressed any opinion? President Gascoigne asked again. Sir Alex Ferguson was no longer curious as to why President Gascoigne was always focusing on Minter Carmilla. In the entire signs, including Minter Carmilla, there were only a total of 28 magi. Each one of them was publicly recognized as a peak figure in signs. When the Lampari Kingdom Sorcerers Guild suddenly reported that great magician Camilla had broken through to become an archmagus, it had created a large stir in the Sorcerers Guild. This was because it had been 9 years since the last archmagus had appeared. In these 9 years, no new archmagus had appeared in signs, causing the Sorcerers Guild to feel a trace of danger. In the end, the Sorcerers Guild's strong prestige and influence on the continent was built on the foundation of all magicians. Or to put it more directly, it was built on the peak magicians like great magicians and archmagi. This was especially true for archmage-level mages. Because their strength far exceeded that of ordinary mages, every one of them could be considered a key figure in most matters. Therefore, whether it was in the country they were from or in the Magic Union, they would receive the highest level of attention. The Malur Empire and the Kanla Empire each had 7 archmagi. Each one of them had a high position in the empire. Not a single noble could compare to them. And in a small country like the Lampari Kingdom, an archmagus had suddenly appeared. That was simply enough to be on the same level as the king. But out of everyone's expectations, this archmagus that had never appeared since the founding of the Lampari Kingdom had announced that he would accept the employment of a company and become an employee of the company. Almost everyone thought that it was because the chairman of the New Flyer, Su Yi, was Minter Carmilla's grandson-in-law. This was why he was willing to accept the employment of a New Flyer. To put it bluntly, it was just a favor and didn't mean that the New Flyer had the qualifications to attract an archmagus. But now, Sir Alex Ferguson had said that Minter Carmilla was willing to accept the offer and was very passionate about researching magic machines. This was unexpected. From this point of view, his support for Su Yi's proposal would determine the attitude of the Sorcerer's Guild towards this proposal. Minter Carmilla didn't make a specific statement, but she said to me that this kind of thing could be handed over to Su Yi and that the Sorcerer's Guild will cooperate with him. Sir Alex Ferguson replied, "Cooperate with him?" A few elders and counselors let out surprised voices at the same time. What kind of joke is this? An elder lightly slapped the table. It's their fortune that the Sorcerer's Guild has taken a fancy to this small company. Now that they've taken the initiative to propose a proposal to us, they actually want us to take the initiative to cooperate with them? Are you kidding me? Sir Alex Ferguson coughed lightly. This was what Minter Carmilla said. Chairman Su actually hopes that the Sorcerer's Guild can properly discuss this and determine a method of cooperation. So what if Minter Carmilla said it? Another elder snorted coldly. We respect Minter Carmilla's opinion, but this doesn't mean that the Sorcerer's Guild will lose control of this matter. New Flyer only needs to listen to the arrangements of the Sorcerer's Guild headquarters. There's no need to think of so many ridiculous proposals. Sir Alex Ferguson looked at the agitated group of elders with a slightly embarrassed expression. He thought to himself that he had just expressed his willingness to support Su Yi's proposal, but now he was being opposed by so many people. This was simply a slap to his face. He could only turn his head to look at President Gashion. He was very clear that this kind of matter ultimately needed the president to set the tone. Chapter 823. Even after the meeting was over, there was no definite conclusion on the matter of cooperating with the Frestec Chamber of Commerce. This was because Chairman Gashion had only asked Archmagus Camilla about his opinion on this matter and hadn't expressed his own opinion at all. The other elders were already used to this situation. In any case, the president would not express his opinion until the very last moment. Not to mention that the matter of the Frestec Chamber of Commerce in the eyes of many elders was a small matter that wasn't even worth mentioning. Even though this matter involved a respected magus, and the president of New Flyer, Su Yi, was a great magus who deserved to be taken seriously, this matter only involved beginner and level 2 magi. Although these low-level magi made up more than 80% of all the magi in the signs, in the eyes of the elders, they were not more important than a magus. Rather than wasting time thinking about them, it would be better to think about how to rope in Minter Carmilla, the newly promoted magus. In any case, it did not matter if these beginner and level 2 magi could not survive in the circle of magi. Every year, there would be countless people with magical talent joining the ranks. The Sorcerer's Guild did not have to worry about the foundation of magi at all. However, after the meeting ended, President Gashion asked Sir Alex Ferguson to stay behind. It was clear that he wanted to speak with him alone. The other elders were not surprised by this. After all, this matter involved Minter Carmilla. From the president's attitude, he should be very concerned about Minter Carmilla. Since he asked Sir Alex Ferguson to stay behind for a private conversation, it was likely that he wanted to ask more about Minter Carmilla. However, when everyone left and only President Gashion and Sir Alex Ferguson were left on the magic throne, President Gashion opened his mouth and asked something completely unrelated to Minter Carmilla. "Ferguson, how much do you think New Flyer's annual income is now?" Sir Alex Ferguson was startled. He thought to himself, how would I know? This is New Flyer's secret. You don't need to give an accurate number. Just a rough estimate will do. President Gassion added. This. Sir Alex Ferguson frowned and thought for a long time before shaking his head helplessly. President, I really don't know much about this. However, I can confirm that the various magic machines produced by New Flyer are very popular in the surrounding countries. I saw them all along the way from the Malar Empire to the Principality of Constantine. So I think their annual income must be very high. Very high? How high? Could it be more than 10 million gold coins? President Gassion's interest. 10 million gold coins. I'm not sure, but based on the situation at the New Flight Commerce main base, I think it shouldn't be a problem. Or even higher than this. If that's the case, then I'm afraid we'll have to pay more attention to Su Yi's proposal. President Gassion smiled. President, do you intend to cooperate with New Flyer? I originally intended to cooperate with them. The only difference is the degree of cooperation. President Gassion paused and said, Originally, I just thought that since Su Yi himself is a great magician, he should be very willing to cooperate with the Sorcerer's Guild. I wanted to give New Flyer a name and let him help us solve some problems. But now that I've read your report, I have a different idea. Sir Alex Ferguson's eyes lit up. President, could it be that you're interested in New Flyer's magic machines? President Gassion glanced at Sir Alex Ferguson with a smile that wasn't a smile on his face. If we're talking about magic tools, it's obvious that our Sorcerer's Guild's foundation far surpasses that of New Flyer. But New Flyer can make so much money through those simple magic tools, while our Sorcerer's Guild has invested a lot of money in researching these magic tools, but we haven't gained a single gold coin from it. This point is worth it for us to die for. Sir Alex Ferguson looked at President Gassion in astonishment. He thought that the president's words meant that his evaluation of New Flyer was too high. The Sorcerer's Guild hadn't been able to make money from magic tools for thousands of years, but a small company like New Flyer could do it. Didn't this mean that New Flyer was stronger than the Sorcerer's Guild? Regarding New Flyer, I remember that a few years ago, the Sorcerer's Guild branch in the Lampari Kingdom submitted a proposal regarding magic patents, which was then passed after a research. After that, New Flyer should have applied for a lot of magic trains from the guild headquarters, right? Before going to New Flyer for an inspection, Sir Alex Ferguson had done some research on New Flyer, so of course he knew about this matter. He nodded and said yes. Currently, the guild headquarters has applied for more than 130,000 magic patents. Among them, New Flyer alone has applied for more than 70,000 patents. At this point, Sir Alex Ferguson couldn't help but let out a sigh of admiration. I really don't understand how such a small company can come up with so many novel things in magic research. With more than 70,000 magic patents, they can even list a complete elemental magic. Since they're willing to apply for so many magic patents from the guild headquarters, it proves that they're willing to accept the leadership of the guild. Since that's the case, it'll be easy to handle. President Gascoigne pondered for a moment and continued, Ferguson, I'll have to trouble you to make another trip to the Principality of Constantine. Sir Alex Ferguson wasn't surprised and said, Please instruct me, President. But, President, how should I express my stance to Su Yi this time? You don't have to express a specific stance. President Gascoigne revealed a confident smile. You just have to tell him that the guild headquarters is willing to cooperate with him, but you also need New Flyer to show their sincerity. I think this Su Yi will definitely know what to do. Sir Alex Ferguson immediately understood and nodded in agreement. After leaving the Divine Throne of Magic, Ferguson directly landed in the Sky Castle, and after identifying the direction, he walked towards the most prosperous commercial street in the Sky Castle. He was about to go to the Principality of Constantine again, and had to make some preparations for the journey. Although the Sky Castle was a city of mages, it didn't mean that there were only mages in the city. Although it was indeed the place with the highest density of mages in the entire continent, mages were still humans, after all, and had normal living needs. Hence, there wasn't much difference between the Sky Castle and other cities on the continent, and there were also living and commercial areas. The commercial street that Sir Alex Ferguson was heading towards was located in the southwest of the Sky Castle and was the most prosperous street in the Sky Castle. It was also the most ordinary street in the Sky Castle. As long as one had money, one could buy almost all the daily necessities on this street. Sir Alex Ferguson had just stepped into the commercial street and was about to go to the grocery store that he frequented the most when he saw a group of people huddling together on the street in front of him, and there was an extremely loud noise coming from inside. "What's the matter?" Sir Alex Ferguson frowned and approached that side. "Can't I be unwilling? I don't have money, and I can't afford to set it up, can I? Can you mages still be reasonable?" A shrill female voice sounded from the crowd, and it sounded extremely ear-piercing. "When have I been unreasonable?" It was the deep voice of a middle-aged man that answered. "Didn't you just tell me last week that you wanted me to set up a large-scale frost array for your shop this week? You even gave me the deposit, and now you're telling me that you don't need to set it up anymore? Are you playing with me? Oh, how would I dare to play with a noble mage? But I really don't need this large-scale frost array now. Why? Don't tell me you want to force a deal? Nonsense. How dare you insult a noble and righteous sorcerer? When did I force a deal? If you insist on forcing me to set up this large-scale frost array, then you're forcing a deal. I'm not." It was obvious that this woman had been in business for many years, and she had a sharp tongue. This middle-aged mage was a typical mage who was obsessed with magic research, so how could he win a verbal argument against her? Sir Alex Ferguson listened to the side for a while, and when he saw that the middle-aged mage was gradually losing the ability to fight back, he frowned and activated the magic in his body. The surrounding crowd suddenly felt a gentle force pushing them aside, making a path. This was the Sky Castle, and there were mages everywhere. Sir Alex Ferguson's conspicuous action, of course, immediately attracted the attention of the crowd. Seeing that everyone's eyes were focused on him, Sir Alex Ferguson lifted the hood on his head, revealing his face, and asked coldly, "What's going on?" Sir Alex Ferguson was one of the 16 elders of the Magicians' Union headquarters and naturally had supreme prestige in the Sky Castle. Everyone recognized him immediately and hurriedly bowed to him. "You, come over and tell me what's going on." Sir Alex Ferguson waved to the middle-aged mage. The middle-aged mage approached with trepidation and explained to Sir Alex Ferguson what had happened. Although he did not speak very clearly, Sir Alex Ferguson still understood the whole story from his description. In fact, it was actually similar to what the two of them had said in the conversation just now. This sharp-tongued woman was the proprietress of a large cloth shop on the commercial street. Because the summer was approaching, she had made a reservation with this middle-aged magician last week. She had asked him to set up a large frost array in their shop this week. This was the usual practice of many large shops in the Sky Castle, and there was no problem originally. However, this year, when the middle-aged mage came to set up the array, he was rejected by the lady boss, saying that their shop did not need to set up a large-scale frost array now. So the previous transaction was invalid, and she also asked the middle-aged mage to return the deposit. The middle-aged mage's business was suddenly gone, and now he was being asked to return the deposit. How could he be willing to do that? Hence, the two of them argued over this matter. After listening to the story, Sir Alex Ferguson frowned and quickly made a decision. Since she doesn't need to set up a large-scale frost array, we'll listen to her wishes. We're mages, not bandits. Sir Alex Ferguson first reprimanded the middle-aged mage, then turned to look at the lady boss and said with a straight face, "But no matter what, the deposit can't be returned. This is the rule." The smile on the lady boss's face froze, and then she waved her hand with a smile and said, "Since Sir Alex has said so, of course we'll forget about it." When the surrounding people saw that Sir Alex Ferguson had stepped in, both sides quickly reached an agreement. Naturally, there was no more drama to watch, and they were about to leave. The lady boss obviously knew that it would not do her any good to continue arguing. She bowed to Sir Alex Ferguson and turned to return to her shop. "Wait." Sir Alex Ferguson called out to her at this time. "Sir Alex Ferguson, is there something else?" The lady boss looked at Sir Alex Ferguson with a bit of nervousness. Tell me, why did you suddenly decide that you don't need to set up a large-scale frost array? It's about to be the hottest weather, so if you don't set up a large-scale frost array, aren't you worried that no customers will come because the shop is too hot? The lady boss let out a soft sigh before giving a soft laugh. How could that be? Of course we have to prepare. But it's not a large-scale frost array, but rather the magic air conditioner, right? Sir Alex Ferguson cut her off. The lady boss was surprised. How did you know? Sir Alex Ferguson's face sunk. He looked at the lady boss's shop on the side of the road and felt the faint but strangely stable magic fluctuations coming from it. Then he turned to look at the middle-aged mage beside him in a daze, and he didn't know what to feel in his heart. Chapter 8:24. When the Lampari Kingdom's parliament announced the abolition of this law, it created a stir in the Lampari Kingdom and the surrounding countries. This law was very simple. It forbade anyone from killing cattle, and those who violated this law would be heavily punished. By abolishing this law, it meant that cattle would no longer be protected by this law. As long as anyone had the conditions and wanted to eat them, they could slaughter cattle to eat. For the people of the signs who had low productivity before, especially those who relied on cattle to farm, cattle were the most sacred thing in their hearts. Slaughtering and eating cattle was something they couldn't imagine at all. Perhaps some nobles would secretly slaughter cattle to satisfy their cravings, but no one dared to do this publicly because they would be condemned by everyone. But now that the Lampari Kingdom had suddenly abolished this law that protected cattle, of course it was out of everyone's expectations. Many people were worried that once this law was abolished, there would be many cattle slaughtered in the Lampari Kingdom that wouldn't be spared. Facts proved people's worries. Since the news of this law being abolished was spread, the various newspapers of the Lampari Kingdom kept reporting that cattle were being slaughtered. For a while, it made people think that all the cattle in the Lampari Kingdom would disappear. Many people were very worried because of this. Without cattle, what would they do to farm in the future? However, 2 months later, when the autumn harvest came, these people immediately realized that their worries were unnecessary. Because before the fall harvest, it wasn't that there weren't any places that used cattle, but there were very few places. The reason was very simple. The work of the cattle had been replaced by the various agricultural magic machines in the new flyer. Moreover, whether it was in terms of effect or efficiency, using the agricultural magic machines was countless times better than using cattle. At this time, people finally understood. Since there were better agricultural magic machines, what was the point of using cattle? Although there were still people who were confused by the kingdom's parliament abolishing this law, there was no one who raised any objections. In the end, if there was a chance to eat something as good as beef, who would want to miss it? If people knew that Sue was pushing the Lampari Kingdom to abolish the cattle protection law, because of this, as well as getting a cow to eat as soon as possible, it was unknown what they would think. Of course, this was only a part of Su Yi's actions that wasn't too important. The real big actions were in the Principality of Constantine that he had the most control over. The agricultural upgrade plan that he had discussed with Viscount Constantine was to increase the agricultural structure of the Principality of Constantine. It was to diversify agricultural production and not be limited to rice, wheat, and other staple crops. Or, to put it more bluntly, it was to let the people of the Principality of Constantine eat meat. Because of this, Su Yi planned to create several new livestock farms in the Principality of Constantine. In order to maintain these farms, other than ensuring the production of various kinds of feed, there was also the processing, storage, and transportation of the livestock. When these things were placed on New Flyer, they needed New Flyer to develop a set of magic processing equipment. Seeing the magic lawnmower and the 2 requests of cooperating with the elven tribes in terms of growing fodder, Su Yi gave a nod, showing that he approved of it. The elf side isn't that big of a problem. I can discuss this with Elder Lysania. But I hope that the arrangements will be left to the Parliament. Our New Flyer won't meddle. Su Yi said. Understood. As for the magic lawnmower and the other magic processing equipment, it will take some time to develop, so we'll use people to replace them first. But it's a good thing that we only need to set up an experimental farm, so there should be enough people to use. After saying this, Sui paused. After thinking for a bit, he asked, speaking of people, has the birth statistics of the duchy been released? Viscount Constantine shook his head with a bitter smile. It's hard to get an accurate number because not everyone is used to being sent to the hospital when giving birth. Add this to the new law, it has to be enforced. Sui said with a serious look. Remember, human resources will be the most important thing in the next few decades. You have to grasp all the relevant information. Understood. Viscount Constantine nodded before saying with a smile, but even if there isn't an accurate number, based on the rough statistics, it's clear that there was a large increase in the birth rate of the duchy last year, even surpassing 30,000. This is the most exaggerated birth rate in the history of the duchy. 30,000? Seeing the excited look on Viscount Constantine's face, Sui wanted to curl his lips in disdain. But thinking of the population of the Principality of Constantine being less than 1 million, if there were 30,000 births a year, the birth rate would be over 30%, which was already very exaggerated in the signs. It had to be known that in this world where productivity was low and most countries on the continent were plagued by famine, it was already considered good to have a stable population. How could there be a high birth rate? Sui was very clear that the population problem wasn't something that could be solved in a short period of time, so he only asked about it before putting it to the side. As for the livestock farm and the meat processing factory, because it was still in the planning and testing stage, there wasn't much to discuss right now. Sui carefully looked over the plan and found that Viscount Constantine had considered all the possible problems, so he nodded with a satisfied smile. Very good, Constantine. It seems like choosing you as the chairman back then really was the right choice. Viscount Constantine bowed to Sui. It is my honor. Of course, if it wasn't for Chairman Sui leading the new flyer to bring such astonishing changes to the duchy, no matter how hard I tried, it would have been meaningless. Sui waved his hand and stopped the two of them from flattering each other. After thinking for a while, his expression suddenly turned stern and he snorted coldly. Constantine, help me warn those fellows to behave. The duchy is about to enter a very important period of transition, and I don't want to see anyone causing trouble. If they dare to be disobedient, I don't mind mobilizing the company's guards to help them. Viscount Constantine's expression froze, and he hurriedly nodded in response. All right, then that's all for today. You can go back and do your own things. Yes. Seeing Viscount Constantine's figure disappear outside the door, Sui frowned slightly and fell into deep thought. From the looks of it, this Viscount Constantine was very obedient and would do anything he told him to do. But Sui wasn't sure if he would be like Anklo and change under the influence of power. So in reality, the Principality of Constantine's parliament was just an empty shell under Sui's control. It only had power in name, but in reality, all the specific measures were carried out through the new flyer. But through this year of observation, Viscount Constantine had already shown his strong ability in internal affairs, so Sui began to seriously consider if he should give him some power and train him to be a good helper. The only worry was that he would become another Anklo. Hey, Sui, what are you thinking about? Knitting your brows like this isn't a good thing. The space beside him suddenly twisted and Agnes' figure appeared out of thin air. Sui's tightly knit brows instantly relaxed, and he revealed a smile to Agnes. Agnes, why are you always using spatial magic in your own home? You could just walk over. I'm used to it. Agnes giggled as she sat down beside Sui. Sui, are you free in the next few days? What is it? Do you need something? Sui asked back in a surprised voice. Agnes' face suddenly turned red. Last week when I returned to the tribe, the elder came to talk to me. She said that I still haven't had a child yet, so perhaps there was a problem. She hoped that I could come with you to the tribe and use our elven race's secret techniques to solve this problem. Looking at the shy Agnes, he thought that after being married to her for so long, Agnes was becoming more and more like a human girl. But towards Elder Alicia's invitation, Sui was very helpless. Whether it was Elder Lucia or Elder Lucia, they both placed great importance on him and Agnes. Every few days, they would ask about the situation between the two of them. The two elders were very worried that Agnes still wasn't pregnant after all this time. But Sue, he already had several children, proving that he didn't have this problem, so they could only suspect that it was because of Agnes. But they couldn't prove this, so the two elders could only worry. In order to solve this problem, the two elders had tried many methods, but they had no effect at all. This time, he didn't know what method Elder Lucia had thought of that she wanted Sue-E to try. Do we have to go to the tribe? Sue-E asked after thinking about it. I'll be very busy in the next few days, so I don't have that much free time to make a trip to the tribe. Can you ask Elder Lucia to come over? I also have something to discuss with her. I'm not clear on this. Then I'll ask the elder, Agnes said while shaking her head. All right, I'll invite Elder Lasagna as well. This agricultural industry upgrade plan really needs the participation of the elven race. Agnes loudly replied. If the elders know about this, they will definitely be very happy. It's perfect that the tribe. Agnes' voice suddenly stopped. Sue-E looked over in surprise and saw Agnes tightly knit her brows with a pained expression. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.